Chapter 3280. Yu Linfeng smiled and raised his hand. Han Cheng's scroll slowly flew to Yu Linfeng's eyes. Yu Linfeng carefully reached out and pinched the purple thread. With a gentle tug, the scroll slowly unfurled. Swoosh! A pure white light shot out from where the scroll was unfurled, as if opening a door under the sun. Buzz! Another sword hum followed the white light. Boom! The light was so dazzling that even someone as strong as Xiao Hua couldn't help but squint. Before he could get used to the light, another muffled thunderous sound rushed out from the scroll like a torrential river, going against the heavens and rushing towards the top of the bright moon palace. See-la-la! With a sound that sounded like it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, the defensive primary formation on top of the bright moon palace was instantly destroyed by the overwhelming gang qi contained within the white light. Not only did the countless sword cries within the bright moon palace resonate, but the overwhelming gang qi also pierced straight into the night sky like a giant sword. Bright Moon Square was a place that didn't sleep. It was brightly lit and people didn't sleep at all. Jianghu was an extremely mysterious place to them, because those who could come to Bright Moon Square were all rich, but rich people might not be able to go to Jianghu. Even if some people who didn't know the details wanted to take a look at Jianghu, they didn't have any vitality stones or traces of cultivation. It was difficult for them to enter Jianghu. Now, this giant flying sword was like a heavenly soldier rushing into the night sky. Everyone within 10 miles could see it clearly. How could they not be shocked? Inevitably, everyone in the bright moon lane escaped from the nephrite and the fine wine. They stretched their bodies to look at the flying sword in the night sky, gesticulating with their hands and feet. They were abnormally excited as they discussed incessantly. Such a grand occasion was even more beautiful than any fireworks. Although all eyes in Bright Moon Square were focused on Jianghu, although those who hadn't slept yet were also focused on Jianghu, the vast energy that represented righteousness and righteousness couldn't illuminate the night sky. Between the light and darkness, there were still some ghosts that wandered freely in the darkness, undisturbed by the sharpness of the flying sword. This is the sword qi of a sword cultivator. The moment Han Cheng opened the scroll, the brilliance was so brilliant that Xiao Hua couldn't help but close his eyes. However, even so, the large law character still passed through Xiao Hua's eyes and engraved itself into his mind. Every stroke of this law character was in the shape of a flying sword. The entire brilliance rushing into the night sky was also a soaring sword energy. Xiao Hua, who was used to seeing sword qi in Dawn Rain Continent, couldn't help but groan. He completely understood in his heart, this sword cultivator is indeed a branch of Confucian cultivator. Moreover, it actually originated from Confucian cultivators' legalism. Alas, there are laws in the mortal world, with punishment as the guiding principle. There are laws in heaven and earth, with the sword as the guiding principle. Isn't the law of heaven and earth swept away by sword energy? Inside the Bright Moon Palace, the sounds of metal clanging could be heard. Some were the cries of swords, and some were the cries of weapons. Even some of the weaker cultivators had their true energy stirred. Whoosh! Yu Linfeng shook the scroll in his hand, and the scroll slowly closed up. The sword light that soared into the sky was absorbed into the scroll. Naturally, the sounds of metal clanging within the Bright Moon Palace gradually faded away, and the palace gradually returned to its previous calm. Good heavens, this is merely Senior Han Cheng's handwriting, but it already has such a powerful aura. The majestic aura contained in this handwriting can really shock heaven and earth. Even after fellow Immortal you put away the scroll, this one still hasn't seen Senior Han's original handwriting. If someone were to hold this scroll, wouldn't it be comparable to an imperial weapon? A shocked voice couldn't help but speak. I just don't know, if it was Senior Han Fizi's original handwriting, what kind of aura would it have? Fellow Immortal, what you said is also this one's thoughts. Yu Linfeng's eyes flashed with fervor as he looked at the scroll in front of him. Although this one hasn't seen that kind of heaven-shaking aura, this one heard from the seniors of Star Plucking Tower that if it was Senior Han Fizi's handwriting, this brilliance should be able to penetrate the outer realms and reflect the power of the outer realm stars. No evil in the world can resist this power of starlight. In particular, if it was Senior Han Fizi's handwriting, what broke through just now wasn't my Bright Moon Palace's origin array, but all the restrictions within a radius of 100 li would no longer exist. Damn it. Others didn't say anything, but Xiaohua jumped up first and scolded with a smile. How is that possible? This thing isn't a real spiritual treasure. Without anyone activating it, how can it have such power? Unfortunately, before Xiaohua finished speaking, Fu Jiwen laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you're still lacking. What you Linfeng said? I'm afraid it's not enough to describe Senior Han Fizi's original handwriting at his peak. According to this one's ancestors, 100,000 years ago, when the demon realm invaded." What? Demon realm invaded? Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. This was the first time he heard about the demon realm in the hidden Immortal continent. Yes, it's really that time when the demon realm invaded. Fu Jiwen didn't understand Xiaohua's surprise and nodded. That time, Senior Han Fizi's original handwriting revealed its might for the first time. When it was opened, it directly killed 100 demon generals. 100 demon generals. Xiaohua was flabbergasted. He already knew from Zhang Qingshao that the strength of a demon general was comparable to the golden core and nascent soul stage of the Dao sect. This Senior Han Fizi's handwriting was actually able to kill 100 nascent soul stage demon generals. Wasn't this too unimaginable? Bragging. Although Xiaohua didn't refute, it was obvious that he was already secretly criticizing. It's exactly 100 demon generals. Fu Jiwen laughed. Fellow Taoist, don't think this one is exaggerating. The righteous qi of us Confucian cultivators is the nemesis of the demon realm. Although their physical bodies are incomparably powerful, the demon flames and demon blood they cultivate have no resistance in front of the righteous qi of us Confucian cultivators. Especially when they invaded my hidden immortal continent, in front of the righteous qi that has been settled for hundreds of millions of years, it was like a drop of water falling into a sea of fire. How could it set off a big wave? Oh, this one understands. Xiaohua nodded. There is righteous qi in heaven and earth. Since ancient times, it has been supporting the justice of the world. As long as there are people, there will be this kind of aura, everlasting. No, what fellow Taoist said is wrong. Fu Jiwen shook his head. There is righteous qi in heaven and earth. This righteous qi has existed since ancient times and does not vary from person to person. Where there are people, there is righteous qi. Where there are no people, there is also righteous qi. It can be said that everything has righteous qi. Even the demon realm also has righteous qi. And this righteous qi is the true qi cultivated by Confucian cultivators. It is not the spiritual qi of heaven and earth cultivated by the Dao sect. Boom. Fu Jiwen's words were like a stone rushing into Xiaohua's ancient well that had remained motionless for 10,000 years. Xiaohua instantly became like a clay statue. An indescribable fluctuation emitted from Xiaohua's body. The stardust that was originally covering his image instantly turned into dust and floated around Xiaohua. Of course, in just an instant, the starlight and silver light in Xiaohua's eyes retracted. All the dust fell around Xiaohua and turned back into stardust. A sudden realization came from Xiaohua's mouth. So it's like this. This one was wrong. Yes, Xiaohua was really wrong. His mistake was inconceivable. He had always been cultivating the righteous qi of Confucian cultivators, but what he refined was only the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. How could it be the righteous qi? No wonder he had been cultivating for 100 years and was still unable to condense his core. It turned out that the path he started on was wrong. And his success in refining essence into qi, most of it was because of the core that he passed on to others, right? Fellow Taoist Xiao? Fu Jiwen was somewhat puzzled. He hesitantly asked Xiaohua, "What's wrong?" Nothing. Since he found the root, Xiaohua immediately felt refreshed. He said with a smile, "This one always thought that the righteous qi was the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Who knew that it was actually so different?" "Oh, that's natural." Fu Jiwen understood and said with a smile, "This is the difference between the Tao sect and Confucian cultivators. Of course there are differences. However, sometimes, the righteous qi has the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and the righteous qi within the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. However, it may not be possible to distinguish them clearly. Then, how can one distinguish the righteous qi?" Xiaohua asked tentatively, "Is it possible that there is a secret technique within the basic cultivation method of Confucian cultivators that is the same as the Tao sects?" "It's not the same." Fu Jiwen waved his hand and said, "The reason why Confucian cultivators are called Confucian cultivators is because they use the righteous qi as their foundation. They rely on Confucian to distinguish the righteous qi. Although everyone more or less has the righteous qi in their body, how can a common person like a common person understand the righteous qi? Only people like us who read and recite scriptures can read the righteous qi from the ancient characters. Only then can we use this righteous qi to trigger our own righteous qi. With our own righteous qi, only then can we draw in the righteous qi of heaven and earth." "Then I've learned." Xiaohua nodded. He understood that the cultivation of Confucian cultivators was still the same. It seemed that the so-called secret technique was just an opportunistic trick of the Tao sect. Suddenly, Xiaohua's heart jumped. He seemed to have a bad premonition. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Fu Jiwen, just now, did you see something?" "Fellow Taoist Xiao, what are you talking about?" Fu Jiwen was surprised by Xiaohua's question. He didn't know what was going on. Xiaohua saw Fu Jiwen's ignorance and unconsciously felt relieved. In the moment when he was absent-minded, Xue saw his death. Master Kachin also saw his death. Xiaohua didn't want this Confucian cultivator in front of him to follow in their footsteps. "It's nothing." Xiaohua waved his hand and said with a smile. However, just as he waved his hand a few times, he was stunned again. "That's not right. If Confucian cultivators don't need the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to cultivate, then what spirit stones do they use? If they don't use spirit stones, why do they still use spirit stones on the hidden immortal continent?" Xiaohua seemed to have suddenly woken up. He seemed to have suddenly become confused. He frowned and thought. Chapter 3281. "Forget it, let's just ask." Xiaohua bitterly smiled. "Since I've already asked so many questions, I don't mind asking a few more idiotic questions." After Xiaohua finished speaking the doubts in his heart, it was Fu Jiwen's turn to be surprised. If it was some common knowledge from before, it could be said that Xiaohua was a cultivator from overseas and had not stepped on the continent for a long time, so he did not know much. However, this matter of origin stones was too inconceivable. Cough cough. Xiaohua smiled. "Young Master Fu, I've always been a lone cultivator and I've always been self-sufficient, so I really don't know about this." Nothing. Fu Jiwen hurriedly waved his hand. "What you know is what you know, what you don't know is what you don't know. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed magnanimous, but I'm still lacking." Then, Fu Jiwen gave a simple explanation. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, this primordial stone also contained righteous qi. However, from what Fu Jiwen could see, the primordial stone was slightly inferior to the primordial qi used for Taoist cultivation. Of course, Confucian cultivators also had methods to absorb the noble spirit from the source stone. However, ordinary Confucian cultivators didn't use these methods. Confucian cultivators believed that the noble spirit was a living and lively world origin qi. Only the noble spirit that flowed between heaven and earth and was drawn from densely populated places was the best. Therefore, source stones were used to refine imperial equipment and arrange origin formations. So that's how it is. Xiaohua suddenly understood. Connecting it to what he saw with his illusion breaker eyes, there were many types of world origin qi in this world. If Taoists picked one type, Confucian cultivators could naturally choose another type, and the world origin qi could also be condensed into a spirit stone. However, absorbing the noble spirit from heaven and earth is somewhat difficult. It's easy to absorb the noble spirit from the source stone. Nowadays, students are greedy and many students have secretly started to use source stones to cultivate. Fujiwen sighed and said, especially my Taoist sect's spirit pills. It is said that after refining with a special method, it can also promote the cultivation of Confucian cultivators. Students who haven't broken through for a long time have also started to try. Now, the spirit grass and spirit fruits are a lot more expensive than before. Humans are insatiable and always seek opportunities for themselves. In the long run, what difference will there be between Confucianism and Taoism? In any case, this Xiao is a Taoist, so I won't worry about Confucian cultivators. Xiaohua shrugged. Everyone sweeps the snow in front of their own door, there's no need to worry about others. Looking back at the auction, legalist senior Han Cheng's handwriting had already set off a frenzy of bidding. Even young Master Duanmu, who was opposite Xiaohua, was repeatedly bidding. Clearly, this handwriting was his main objective for coming to Zhai Xinglu this time. After more than 10 rounds of bidding, everyone finally stopped. No one else bid against young Master Duanmu. However, at this moment, everyone's gaze was focused on Xiaohua. He thought that Xiaohua hadn't opened his mouth to bid from beginning to end. Ha, Xiaohua laughed. He finally understood why young Master Duanmu sent the visiting card. That was to test him, to show him a kind of intention. That was, to not let Xiaohua compete with him in order to reach the bottom line in his heart. Add 10 high-grade primordial stones. Xiaohua said indifferently. Boom. Everyone immediately cheered loudly. This one will also add 10 high-grade primordial stones. Young Master Duanmu's tone was also indifferent. It didn't matter if Xiaohua increased the price, the key was that he couldn't force him step by step. In the end, it was just as young Master Duanmu thought. Xiaohua only increased the price once, conveying that he already knew the meaning and didn't say anything else. This caused the cultivators who wanted to watch the show to feel sad. All right. Yu Linfeng had a smile on his face. With a wave of his hand, great scholar Han Cheng's handwriting flew into young Master Duanmu's pavilion. With another wave of his hand, the second scroll slowly landed in front of him. This is the second great scholar's handwriting today. Fellow immortals may not be familiar with this great scholar, but fellow immortals definitely know about Confucianism. This great scholar is the Yinyang school's old master Zhou Yuanhan. Along with Yu Linfeng's long voice, he stretched out his slender finger and pulled the purple silk thread. As the scroll fell, 2 bright and dark rays of light suddenly appeared. Although it was somewhat inferior to Han Cheng's sword qi, the light and dark rays had a solemn air of annihilation. At the same time, these 2 rays of light soared into the sky, higher than the previous sword qi, and formed the shape of a huge yin-yang fish in the night sky. As the brilliance of this yin-yang fish circulated in the night sky, thousands of evil spirits scattered in the night sky, causing the entire bright moon square to seem to tremble. Clear yang is the sky, turbid yin is the earth. Above the earth is the clouds, below the sky is the rain. Rain comes from the earth, clouds come from the sky. Yin and yang are the Tao of heaven and earth, the outline of all things, the parents of change, the origin of life and death, and the abode of the gods. Fujiwen looked at the yin-yang fish in the sky through the broken origin array of the bright moon palace and sighed. Heaven and earth have yin and yang turn into 2 qis. Everything can be divided into 2 sides, yin and yang. This school of yin-yang advocates controlling the yin and yang of heaven and earth, using the 2 qis of yin and yang to kill all things. The great scholar who established the school of yin-yang was Zhou Yan. Later on, because he was called Zi, he was given the name Zhou Yanzi. This old master Zhou Yuanhan is most likely his descendant. AI, the esoteric debate is indeed formidable. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, even though our Taoism also has the saying that Tao begets one, and one is divided into yin and yang, but the profoundness of yin and yang is truly obscure. Without a certain level of cultivation, how can one understand it? This Xiao really did not expect that this Confucian cultivator actually has a school of yin-yang that specializes in studying yin and yang. Furthermore, this Xiao admires this senior Zhou Yanzi even more. How can he explain yin and yang so clearly? That's right, 100 years ago, when Xue Xue and Wu Hai's soul entered Xiao Hua's space, he had already experienced the division of yin and yang. If one were to talk about comprehension, Xiao Hua himself indeed has a lot. However, if one were to ask him to form a theory and explain it, it would be extremely difficult. Just like what the Taoists often say, Tao can be said, but it is not an ordinary Tao. Name can be named, but it is not an ordinary name. Just a few words can indeed extend a lot of comprehension, or can only be understood, but not explained. Actually, a strange expression appeared on Fu Jiwen's face. He hesitated for a bit, then smiled and said, "This yin-yang school might have been extremely powerful in the past. It is said that Senior Zhou Yanzi obtained an innate spiritual object called the Yin-Yang Illustrated Handbook. From it, he comprehended the Tao of Yin and Yang and established his own school. However, as the Yin-Yang school of Yin-Yang developed, the Yin-Yang Illustrated Handbook was lost for some unknown reason. The Yin-Yang school of Yin-Yang's research on Yin and Yang gradually deviated. Didn't fellow Taoist Yulin Fengjiu say it clearly just now? Everyone might not know about Zhou Yanzi, but almost everyone in the Yin-Yang school knows about him. That's because the current Yin and Yang more or less falls into the intersection of Yin and Yang. Some crooked sects, such as the Yin-Yang Unity School, also pass down some of their secret techniques from the Yin-Yang school of Yin-Yang. At this point, Fu Jiwen did not say anything else. Xiao Hua was also a person who had undergone dual cultivation. How could he not understand? Perhaps some dual cultivation secret technique, some fusion technique? These yin and yang mating techniques were the things that the yin-yang school of yin-yang was talking about, right? Decline. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. This might be the current situation that those so-called rotten scholars don't want to see. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, "Time flies, clouds and flowers pass by like water. On this hidden immortal continent, not only are the dynasties of 10,000 countries replaced, even the 100 schools are also being washed away by great waves. Only schools and doctrines that can adapt to the changes of the times can truly be preserved. These are not things that can be done by humans." Back then, the Tao sect was tyrannical for a period of time. It could almost contend with the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sects, and even the demon race. However, what about the current Tao sect? After the ancient war, wasn't it also obliterated? If you want to revive the Tao sect, is it something that can be done by a few generations? Let's not talk about this. When Fu Jiwen talked about the decline of the Tao sect, he seemed to be afraid that Xiao Hua would be displeased, so he changed the topic. Looking at the fierce bidding scene downstairs, he said, "Such a rare yin-yang school of yin-yang writing, doesn't fellow Taoist Xiao want to bid for one? Even if this thing's true qi is used up, it is still an authentic work handed down from generation to generation." Forget it, Xiao Hua said with a smile. If it was some yin-yang illustrated handbook, if it was some harmony secret manual, this Xiao would still be interested. What kind of writing is this? This Xiao doesn't understand. Fu Jiwen laughed. Fellow Taoist Xiao is really a straightforward person. If it was an ordinary Confucian scholar, they would definitely not say these words. You dare to do it while hiding in your room, but don't dare to say it when you come out? Xiao Hua snorted disdainfully. If you want to say it, you have to use alternative words. For example, the joy of the boudoir is even greater than the one who draws the eyebrows. Fellow Taoist Zhao's straightforwardness is a disgrace to the refined. Damn it, to turn a good yin-yang into a marriage, isn't this a disgrace to the refined? Xiao Hua really couldn't see through the act of covering one's ears while stealing a bell. Especially using words to replace imagination, it was really annoying. While the two were talking, that Zhou Yuanhan's old man Zhou's calligraphy was also bought by a certain senior on the 3rd floor. Xiao Hua also clearly saw that young Master Duanmu also seemed to slightly raise the price and immediately gave up. Clearly, he also had a tacit understanding with the others. Xiao Hua could know, and Yu Linfeng even more so. However, this was a kind of mutual compromise. The price of the calligraphy was something that both sides could bear. Who would care about the movements behind the scenes? Yu Linfeng sent that scroll to the third floor's balcony and began to bluff the third scroll. Fellow immortals, the writing on this third scroll is also very famous. Moreover, this school created a Confucian cultivation method that is widely spread in my hidden immortal continent. As he said that, Yu Linfeng opened the scroll again. Like a burst of water, 10,000 rays of brilliance poured out from the scroll. Like the Milky Way pouring out, it directly rushed into the night sky. It was incomparably gorgeous. Noble Spirit River. Dozens of young voices shouted in unison, "This is the school of vertical and horizontal Confucian cultivators." Ah! Yu Linfeng laughed loudly and said, "Correct, correct. The river character on this scroll is the authentic work of the school of vertical and horizontal Confucian Lu Wensheng. Chapter 3282. Upstairs, Fu Jiwen pointed at the righteous spirit that flashed like the Milky Way and said, "The school of vertical and horizontal is a very famous school in the esoteric debate. The school of vertical and horizontal is 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 the school of vertical and horizontal. This is the so-called vertical and horizontal. The school of vertical and horizontal was created by the two seniors Zhang Yi and Su Qin. Senior Su Qin advocated the vertical and Senior Zhang Yi advocated the horizontal. It was in the vertical and horizontal that the two seniors comprehended the true essence of water flow and created the cultivation method of the righteous spirit Long River. Using this as a basis, they were honored as Su Qin Zi and Zhang Yi Zi respectively, leaving their names in history. Moreover, this righteous spirit Long River is very easy to obtain. It is the simplest among the many cultivation methods of the Confucian cultivators. Therefore, once this cultivation method was spread out, it was immediately passed down. In the ancient times, the number of disciples of the school of vertical and horizontal were as many as the hairs on an ox. The Confucian cultivators who answered in unison just now were most likely disciples who cultivated the righteous spirit Long River. Of course, now that this cultivation method has been spread out, they may not necessarily be disciples of the school of vertical and horizontal. As Fu Jiwen spoke, many cultivators began to bid again. This time, the liveliness was even greater than before. This was because great scholar Lu Cheng's handwriting not only had the same righteous spirit Long River as the previous handwriting, but also the true essence of the righteous spirit Long River could be found in this handwriting. This was the so-called killing two birds with one stone. All the Confucian cultivators who cultivated the righteous spirit Long River naturally rushed like ducks. After seeing the righteous spirit Long River of legalism, school of yin yang, and school of vertical and horizontal, Xiaohua was looking forward to the handwriting in the last scroll. He simply didn't ask about the 10 great imperial artifacts that Fu Jiwen hadn't explained yet. He smiled and stuck his head out, looking at the sounds of bidding below with interest. Fu Jiwen saw that Xiaohua's attention wasn't here and didn't say much. He looked at Xiaohua's star-like figure with some confusion. He really didn't understand why Xiaohua asked him so much common sense. That's right, common sense. As a cultivator of the hidden immortal continent, whether they cultivated Confucian cultivators, Buddhist cultivators, or even Taoist cultivation methods, as long as they grew up here, they should know this common sense. Although Xiaohua was a Tao sect cultivator and didn't understand the cultivation of Confucian cultivators, the 100 Schools debate was an ancient story. The 10 great imperial artifacts were stories that ordinary people grew up listening to. How could Xiaohua not know? Even if he was an overseas rogue cultivator, he still had to grow up, right? Fu Jiwen did not believe that a cultivator who grew up in the hidden immortal continent would not know about the 10 great imperial equipment. Perhaps fellow Taoist Xiao came from the Thousand Demons sacred realm or the Pure Land world. This was Fu Jiwen's final guess, but this guess was immediately doubted by himself. Essence stones, who in the 3 continents didn't know about them? Maybe he came from the Pure Land. That place doesn't need vitality stones. When the dust settled, to everyone's surprise, the authentic work of the school of vertical and horizontal's great scholar, Lu Wensheng, was not bought by the cultivators on the balcony. The final bidder was an unknown cultivator on the ground floor. Hee hee, looks like I'm not the only one who's keeping a low profile. Xiaohua laughed. Fu Jiwen frowned and said, that might not be the case. In my opinion, I'm afraid several small aristocratic families or several sects gathered together to bid. Who cares who he is? It has nothing to do with me. I've never cultivated the noble spirit river, and I don't know anything about authentic works. Xiaohua stretched. Moreover, this star-picking towers auction, TSK, it's really boring. There's nothing that I want. Fu Jiwen laughed and said, right now, the auction is for Confucian cultivators. Dao sex items are very rare. What about the especially precious items? Perhaps at the end, fellow Taoist Xiao, please don't be impatient. I know. Xiaohua nodded and pointed outside the window, saying, what I want to know now is, who is the owner of the last scroll? Which school is it from? The most famous of the 100 schools of Confucian cultivators are Confucian, Mahist, Legalist, Military, School of Famous, Yin-Yang, School of Vertical and Horizontal, School of Miscellaneous, School of Farmer, School of Novels, and School of Vertical and Horizontal. Just now, 3 great Confucian scrolls appeared, School of Legalism, School of Yin-Yang, and School of Vertical and Horizontal. As for the 4th school, it's hard to guess. Fu Jiwen's curiosity was also great. He pinched his chin and looked at Yu Linfeng holding the 4th scroll in his hand. Yu Linfeng's face carried a trace of mystery. His hand was placed on the purple silk rope, but he didn't release it. Instead, he raised his head and looked around, saying with a smile, this last scroll, I don't know if it's out of everyone's expectations. Before Yu Linfeng finished speaking, his finger shook. Boom. A violent vibration sounded, as if 10,000 horses were galloping. A 5-colored brilliance mixed with an indescribable noble spirit rushed out from the scroll. Ah? Xiaohua was used to seeing the brilliance of Taoist cultivators' treasures. This 5-colored brilliance didn't count as anything magical. But Fu Jiwen actually jumped up from his chair in shock, shouting in shock. This is Confucian's 5 cheese unifications? Sure enough, that 5-colored noble spirit rushed into the night sky and actually formed an auspicious cloud several meters in size, illuminating half a mu of the sky. That 5-colored brilliance was different from when it rushed out just now. This time, it was extremely gentle, even more silky than a lover's gaze. And above this auspicious cloud, endless starlight faintly sprinkled down, enveloping the auspicious cloud. It really is Confucian's 5 cheese unifications. Fu Jiwen raised his head and said excitedly, Zhai Xinglu is indeed amazing, to actually be able to find the authentic writings of Confucian great Confucians. Nowadays, on the hidden Immortal continent, the authentic writings of Confucian great Confucians have long been extinct. That's right, that's right. At this time, Xiaohua suddenly shouted in hindsight, young Master Fu, you just said that there must be Confucian writings among the century-old theories. Is Confucian the same as Confucian cultivators? Hee, of course they're not the same. The excitement on Fu Jiwen's face hadn't disappeared, and he answered with a smile. Confucian cultivators are naturally a kind of cultivation method, just like what I just explained to fellow Taoist, using the noble spirit of heaven and earth as the foundation. And Confucian is a school of Confucian cultivators. It's just that the influence and scale of this school is far greater than the sum of the other schools, so this cultivation method is also called Confucian cultivators. It's not what fellow Taoist thinks, that Confucian cultivators are Confucian cultivators. At this point, Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly again, smacking his lips and saying, although that's the case, in reality, Confucian cultivators account for 90% of Confucian cultivators. Saying that Confucian cultivators are Confucian cultivators is not impossible. Who was the great scholar who founded Confucian? Xiaohua's eyes lit up, and he asked with extreme curiosity. Speaking of Confucian cultivators, Fu Jiwen was also in high spirits, and he spoke frankly with assurance. Confucian cultivators are one of the most important schools of thought in the 100 schools of thought. Confucian cultivators use the 6 arts as their method: advocate, etiquette, music, benevolence, and righteousness. They advocate loyalty and forgiveness, and they advocate the golden mean. They advocate rule of virtue and benevolence. Confucian cultivators emphasize the function of education, and they believe that heavy education and light punishment is the only way for a country to be stable and the people to be rich and happy. They advocate education without discrimination, and they should educate both the ruler and the ruled, so that the whole country from top to bottom becomes a person of high moral character. The founder of Confucian was surnamed Kong, and his name was Chiu. His courtesy name was Zhong and I. He was from Yu Province's Lu country, and after he founded the Confucian school, he was revered as Confucius. Today, he is respectfully called Eternal Paragon by the later generations of hidden Immortal continent. The core of his theory is benevolence. He advocates love and demands that people should love each other and get along harmoniously. To realize benevolence, one must be tolerant of others and do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. And the system or code of conduct that embodies benevolence is restrain oneself and return to etiquette. Confucius's works include poem, book, etiquette, music, and so on. These 5 books are the most famous, and they are often called the 5 classics by hidden Immortal continent. Other than Confucius, there are 2 other important figures in Confucian. One is Meng Ku, whose courtesy name is Ziyu. Senior Meng Ku advocates benevolence, and further proposes that the people are the most important, the state comes second, and the ruler is the least important. His ethics is good by nature. The other is Sun Quan, and people at that time called him Sun Qing. He advocates benevolence and righteousness and the way of the king and using virtue to convince people. He also proposed that the ruler is the boat and the commoners are the water. The water carries the boat, and it also capsizes the boat. These 2 were also respectfully called Zi by later generations, Meng Zi and Sun Zi. The 4 books that hidden Immortal continent often refers to, De Shui, the Golden Mean, the Analects, and Meng Zi, were written by these 3 great scholars. Although the cultivation method of Confucian cultivators was passed down from ancient times, it doesn't matter what it was called in the beginning. After Confucian cultivators appeared, this cultivation method became Confucian cultivators. Xiao Hua understood and sighed. The influence of Confucian cultivators on hidden Immortal continent is so deep. These opinions and propositions, although they are not cultivation, they are enough to have an impact on cultivation. This 5 Qis unifications should be the manifestation of the noble Qi in the chest of Confucian cultivators being condensed to the extreme, right? Fu Jiwen nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. Confucian cultivators emphasize on entering the world, which is different from Taoist cultivators. Therefore, all Confucian cultivators have their own opinions to govern the country and educate the people. This is related to cultivation, but also has nothing to do with it. This 5 Qis unifications is the purpose of Confucian cultivators. As long as one cultivates to the realm of 5 Qis unifications, one's physical body can become a saint and one can ascend." Hiss! Hearing this, Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air, as if he had thought of an inconceivable question. He almost blurted out, "Then, the place where Confucian cultivators ascend is the immortal world? Is this immortal world the same as the immortal world of Taoists?" Haha. Fu Jiwen laughed heartily. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, if you want me to answer this question, I'm afraid you have to wait for me to cultivate to the realm of 5 Qis unifications, ascend to the immortal world, and then return from the immortal world, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Hua touched his nose and helplessly said, "This is indeed true." At this time, at the auction, the people who were as shocked as Fu Jiwen were also boiling with excitement. The people who were familiar with each other were not only whispering, but even the people who didn't know each other were also saying something loudly. If they weren't showing off their talent, then they were showing off their knowledge. Chapter 3283. Fellow Immortals, you can see it clearly. Yu Linfeng loudly said, This is the word Confucian, written by the Confucian school's senior Kong Liwen. When he wrote this scroll, he had already stepped into the realm of literary star. Therefore, the auspicious clouds of the 5 Qis unifications can also attract the starlight from the sky to destroy evil and exorcise demons. If this book was written by Confucius, the sage Kong Liwen, it would definitely be a clear cloud with a righteous aura. Not to mention the starlight, even if one's eyesight was slightly poor, they might not be able to see it. Fu Jiwen sighed. Unfortunately, this one has only heard of it. This is the first time I've seen the handwriting of a great Confucian scholar. But why is that? Xiao Hua was somewhat puzzled. The Confucian school emphasizes the path of the golden mean. The golden mean is impartial and without fault. The common principle is the natural order of the heavens, the pinnacle of subtlety. Confucius's righteous aura must be quiet and without a trace, without the smoke and fire of the mortal world. This one understands. Xiao Hua nodded. Although he didn't quite understand the meaning of this sentence, within the Tao sect's magical techniques, the brilliant ones didn't necessarily have great power. It was precisely those magical techniques that contained terrifying power that were extremely restrained and wouldn't waste unnecessary spiritual qi. Seeing Yu Linfeng put away the scroll, the soaring righteous aura disappeared. Xiao Hua heard the bidding sounds downstairs and his heart itched. He secretly pondered whether he should also get one to play with. Actually, this path of the golden mean originated from Confucius, but it flourished with Zhu Shi, old man Zhu. Fu Jiwen sorted out his mood, slowly sat down and said casually, "What? Zhu Shi? Old man Zhu?" Xiao Hua heard this and was suddenly shocked. Is it the Confucian Zhu family? Oh? Fellow Xiao actually knows about the Zhu family? Fu Jiwen was greatly surprised. Xiao Hua laughed. Hee, this one can't possibly not know anything. I've heard of this Zhu family. I wonder how they are now. How are they now? A strange expression appeared on Fu Jiwen's face again. He looked out of the window and said, the Zhu clan has been passed down since ancient times and has lived in Wuyuan County of Shuzhou. Back then, Zhu Shi, old Master Zhu's name shook the hidden immortal continent. He was known as another great master after Confucius who could be respected as Z. However, after the war between Confucianism and Buddhism, for some unknown reason, the once prosperous Zhu clan actually declined. In the end, it actually disappeared without a trace. Now, there are many surnames of Zhu on the hidden immortal continent, but I have never heard of anyone who is the true descendant of the Zhu clan. Xiao Hua inwardly nodded his head. He already understood that the Zhu family had likely been annihilated by the Tao sect. Their descendants should have been cursed by the Tao sect experts, causing them to slowly decline. It's a pity that the Zhu family has been annihilated, and so has the Zhu family's academic legacy. Fu Jiwen's face was filled with regret. Even now, there are still many students who frequently travel to Shuzhou's Wuyuan County to study, hoping to discover the heritage of the Zhu clan. That inheritance is second only to Confucius's knowledge. If you can get it, it will definitely be an amazing achievement. Obtaining and achieving are two different things. Xiao Hua laughed. Fellow Taoist Xiao is right. But since you can get it, you might be able to break through the Zhu clan's academic legacy and become a great scholar. Fu Jiwen also nodded his head. Who wouldn't like this kind of temptation? It's still fame and fortune. Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. While they were talking, the bidding for the authentic work of Senior Kong Liwen had finally reached the climax. Young Master Duanmu, who was opposite Xiao Hua, seemed to be competing with another VIP on the 3rd floor to raise the price, directly raising the price to a terrifying level. Unfortunately, in the end, young Master Duanmu actually had no choice but to give up when the other party only increased the price by 1 top-grade primeval stone. This made Xiao Hua sigh endlessly. Perhaps the 3 top-grade primeval stones that Xiao Hua used to obstruct him were the last few straws that broke the camel's back. The bidding for the authentic work of great scholar came to an end. The next bidding was still for the items of hidden immortal continent. However, these things were mostly refining techniques of imperial tools, only some great refiners had use for them. Not only were there few people bidding, even Xiaohua was too lazy to listen. He could be considered to be proficient in the refining techniques of Dao sect and soul cultivators. He also knew a lot of refining techniques of the devil world. Imperial tools, in essence, most of them were derived from Dao sect's tools. Xiaohua could refine spirit tools. Why would he be greedy for the refining techniques of imperial tools? Young Master Fu. Xiaohua raised his hand and took out some spirit fruits from the space. He handed them to Fu Jiwen and said, "Try these spirit fruits, and then continue to analyze the remaining 10 great imperial tools with this Xiao." But Fu Jiwen clapped his hands and took the spirit fruit. He gently took a bite, tasted it, and said, "Can I bring some back?" "Of course you can." Xiaohua nodded his head. "However, these spirit fruits are full of heaven and earth primeval qi. People without cultivation are not suitable to eat." "This one understands." Fu Jiwen carefully received some and replied, "My wife likes these things, but this one is incompetent and can hardly satisfy her request." "Oh, so it's like that." Xiaohua understood and said enviously, "It's rare for your wife to be so loving, so this Xiao won't help you?" Then, with a wave of Xiaohua's hand, a large pile of spirit fruits appeared on the table as if they didn't cost primeval stones. "Ah? That is too much." Fu Jiwen was shocked and hurriedly refused. "It's okay, it's just some snacks. Young Master Fu, take it and eat." Xiaohua casually waved his hand. "This Xiao has troubled you for so long, I'm sorry." "Alright." Fu Jiwen was really moved in his heart and happily put all the spirit fruits into his small universe bag. Then, he took out a bright red fruit and said while eating, "Ranked above the mysterious demon chess are the tranquil flute and the heavenly sound zither." The reason why these two imperial equipment are placed together is because these two imperial equipment were used by the people of the Immortal Palace before the Golden Boy and Jade Girl were conferred into the Immortal Palace. Just now, didn't this one tell fellow Xiao that this music is one of the 5 classics of the Confucian school, and the art of music is also one of the compulsory lessons for students? The tranquil flute and the heavenly sound zither are imperial equipment that mainly use sound attacks. Of course, if we were to simply talk about the power of these two imperial equipment, I personally believe that they cannot be compared to the demon and god chess. Perhaps it is because everyone thinks that these two imperial equipment are elegant, so they place them on the demon and god chess. Speaking of the tranquil flute and the heavenly sound zither, naturally there is a story that everyone knows. Fu Jiwen said again, "In the early years, the Golden Boy and Jade Girl didn't know each other, and they were also enemies. When the two were young, they met in the same academy. It wasn't love at first sight, but after a long time, the two gradually developed feelings for each other. However, when the two were ready to reveal their relationship, they were discovered by their families. The two finally understood that their lovers were enemies, and under the opposition of the two families, the two couldn't get married. Therefore, the two had no choice but to stop their studies and fly away. However, since the seed of love was planted, it was inevitable that it would sprout. When the seed grew into a big tree, the Golden Boy and Jade Girl couldn't help but inquire about the other party's situation. When the two found out that the other party had rejected countless marriage proposals, and even Jade Girl didn't hesitate to fight with her life, the two's hearts suddenly softened. Just when the two were about to get in touch, the war between the two families broke out. The two families fought in a dangerous situation and killed each other. Many of their elders died, and even if the two were in love with each other, they were forced to act against each other's families. At the end of the bloody battle, the two finally met, but the two couldn't bear to kill each other. At the crucial moment, the two stepped into the trap set by the two families in advance and prepared to go to the Yellow Springs together. This trap was set up by taking advantage of the danger of foreign objects. After the two fell into the dangerous situation, everyone thought that the two would die without a doubt. But after they fought a bloody battle for a night, they saw the inside of the dangerous situation shine brightly, and then a wonderful music like the sound of nature came out from inside. That music was like rain, and erased the blood in everyone's heart. That music was like the sound of heaven, and all the dead souls were transcended. In this music, everyone was remorseful, and everyone was reflecting. When the music was over, the two families didn't want to kill each other anymore. They shook hands and made peace and vowed to be good for their families. When the two families made the vow, the golden boy and jade girl each took the tranquil heart flute and heavenly melody zither and flew out of the dangerous situation. The two were in love, and their love was stronger than gold. In the case of dying for love, the heavens were moved, and they actually obtained two imperial equipment in this dangerous situation. It was also these two who relied on these imperial equipment to change the blood feud between the two families. When the two cultivated to the 5 Qi unification realm, they received the conferring document from the Immortal Palace and entered the Immortal Palace to serve. Made up. Hearing Fujiwen's words, Xiaohua unrestrainedly asserted, "Not only is this story cliché, it's also full of flaws." Not to mention that when the two met in the academy, they didn't inquire about each other's background, and not to mention that the two were able to walk together in the battle between the two families and went into the dangerous situation together. Just this imperial equipment, it's impossible to control it right away. The final ending is even more bullshit. I'm afraid that the old woman gave the name of the Immortal Palace to her young granddaughter to make them happy, right? Fujiwen shrugged and said with a smile, "Maybe. But this story has been circulating in the hidden immortal continent for many years, and no one doubted it. Also, the tranquil heart flute and heavenly melody zither, these two imperial equipment are indeed from the Immortal Palace. It's said that when the Immortal Palace sent soldiers to capture the demons who didn't submit to the Immortal Palace, someone personally saw the power of these two imperial equipment. That's what the Immortal Palace used to trick people, to make people admire the Immortal Palace." Xiaohua pointed with his hand and said downstairs, "Just like this Yu Linfeng, saying so much, isn't it just to make people pay more origin stones?" Haha, Fujiwen laughed, because downstairs, Fujiwen was bidding for a phoenix tail zither and was exaggerating. Chapter 3284. By the way, what do you mean by Immortal Palace capturing unruly demons? Xiaohua asked in confusion. Does Immortal Palace still care about Hidden Immortal Continent? Hidden Immortal Continent has tens of thousands of countries and hundreds of millions of people. Fujiwen explained, these ordinary governance rights are all in the hands of the kings of the 10,000 countries. Immortal Palace naturally won't intervene. Even if the country's power changes, Immortal Palace still won't care. Even if a power different from Confucian cultivators appears, Immortal Palace may not intervene. But if these powers openly compete with Immortal Palace, openly oppose Confucian cultivators, and openly slaughter Confucian cultivators, then Immortal Palace will definitely kill them. According to what I know, 800 years ago in the Yong province, there was a powerful bull demon who wanted to establish his own empire. Moreover, he treated the common people of the Yong province as his food. This angered the Immortal Palace, and they sent troops to kill that bull demon. Oh, isn't bull demon a demon of 1,000 demons' sacred realm? Can Immortal Palace just kill it? Xiaohua asked in surprise. The real demons of 1,000 demons' sacred realm have never disdained to come to Hidden Immortal Continent and Western Paradise. The demons that can appear in Hidden Immortal Continent are not the orthodox demons of 1,000 demons' sacred realm. Moreover, 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm's Great Sage Palace has also publicly announced that any demon that enters Hidden Immortal Continent and Western Paradise will be killed without mercy. Fujiwen said with a smile, so Immortal Palace also didn't show mercy to this bull demon. So that's how it is. Xiaohua understood. When he was about to ask what the number 1 ranked imperial equipment was, Yu Linfeng pressed his hand down. The Hidden Immortal Continent's light ball that was just flickering with brilliance immediately dimmed, and the light ball next to it started to glow. Fellow Immortals, all the rare items of Hidden Immortal Continent's Confucian cultivators have been sold. Now, I will take out some rare items from Western Paradise. Please bid. As Yu Linfeng's voice fell, dang, 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 the sound of the wooden fish rang out from the ball of light, and the complete Sanskrit chants rang out at the same time. Amit Ba. The old monks who were sitting steadily had no choice but to put their palms together and stand up to shout. Namo Amitabha. A Buddhist chant resounded throughout the entire place. The ball of light suddenly expanded and turned into a barefooted Buddha that was several feet tall. He stood in the air, and the swastika character between his brows and the benevolence in his slightly opened eyes instantly attracted everyone's attention. Swoosh! The barefoot Buddha waved his hand, and it came crashing down like a mountain. Ding 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 ding. A series of hurried sounds of the wooden fish rang out again, and then there was a deathly silence. Whether it was the wooden fish or the Sanskrit chanting, both had disappeared. As the Buddha's huge hand pressed down, the entire Buddha flickered with golden light, and in a breath's time, it turned into fireflies. The fireflies danced in the air for a moment, and then condensed into the outline of the nirvana world. Just like before, there were more than 10 slightly larger balls of light. These balls of light were different from the ones in the hidden immortal continent. There were no other colors, only pure Buddhist light. Namo Amitabha. Several old monks chanted in unison. As I heard, for a time, Bagafan lived at the top of the Eagle Peak in the royal residence city, along with a group of 1,250 people. They were all arhats, and they were all exhausted, no more worries, truly free. Their hearts were good, and their wisdom was good, like a wise horse or a great dragon. What they had done, they had abandoned all burdens, they had grasped their own benefits, and they were all tied up. They knew that they were free, and their hearts were free. Apart from Ananda, they lived alone and learned to obtain the fruit of pre-flow. Kasyapa was the highest. Several old monks were solemn as they chanted Buddhist scriptures. The entire auction house was silent for a moment, and then there was a lot of noise. Clearly, these Confucian cultivators were not very interested in Buddhism. Yu Linfeng had an apologetic smile on his face. He raised his hand and saluted to his left and right. My hidden immortal continent is a land of etiquette. Since there are treasures of Buddhism here, we naturally have to respect them. We will wait for a moment, and it won't be too late to bid after these masters finish chanting. Yu Linfeng, hurry up. It's already late. I still have to go back and meditate with my beautiful concubine. Who's here to listen to their nonsense for no reason? Who would have thought that just as Yu Linfeng's voice fell, an irritable voice rang out. Not only was it blaming Yu Linfeng, it was also ridiculing Buddhism's old monks. Yu Linfeng saw that everyone was unhappy and bitterly smiled. Since it's like this, then I will start bidding. With that, Yu Linfeng grabbed with his hand, and a Buddhist light flew out from the outline of the Pure Land and landed in front of Yu Linfeng. When the Buddhist light faded away, it was a monk's staff. That monk's staff had 6 dragons coiled around it, and each dragon head was extremely ferocious. Where was the benevolent appearance of Buddhism? This is one of the 18 treasures of the Pure Land. It is said to be the personal item of the famous Buddhist monk, Miaochen. These 6 dragons are the protectors of Buddhism. This monk's staff has the power of 6 dragons after using Buddhism's secret technique. However, when he saw the numerous sprouts on the willow tree that were trying their best to grow, he sat down. It was very obvious that the willow tree branch was a living thing. Perhaps it was broken off by some little bird at dusk and inserted into the aqua vase. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua asked again, "Young Master Fu, do you know what the Buddhist sect's bhikkhu's 18 objects are?" "Of course I know." Fu Jiwen said very casually. The 18 objects are the 18 objects that Buddhist sect's eminent monks often carry with them. These 18 objects are the Buddhist sect's eminent monks' protection. Unfortunately, one of them has committed a minor sin. Among them, there are 3 grades: heavy, medium, and light. That is, Li San Yi is shedding, which is a heavy sin. Li Bo is Tuji Luo, which is a medium sin. The rest are light sins. These ordinary Buddhist sect monks only use 6 kinds of things: Li San Yi, Li Bo, and water pouch. These 6 kinds of things are known as the bhikkhu's 6 objects. Although this humble one did not deliberately listen to these things, the monks who are everywhere often preach them. This humble one listened and understood. Immediately after, Fu Jiwen looked at the kasaya that he was bidding for. He pointed at it and said, "In fact, These 18 objects are what ordinary people need in life. They are Yangji, which is a wooden chip used to remove the stench in the mouth. Bathing bean, which is a powder ground from soybeans, beans, and peas, which is used for bathing and washing. Li San Yi, which refers to the 3 kinds of clothes of Sunga, Yudoro, and Onto. Li Bo, which refers to the army's 3 kinds of clothes. Li Bo, which is a water bottle used to hold water for washing or drinking. Li Bo, which is also known as a measuring vessel, which is used to hold food. Li Bo, which is a cloth on the ground or on the bed when sitting or lying down. Li Bo, which is a staff with a li bow on the head. When walking, the li bow vibrates to alert people of insects on the road, or when begging to attract people's attention. Incense burner, which is an instrument used to burn incense and invite Buddhas. Li Bo, which is also known as a water filter, a cloth used to filter insects in water. Li Bo, which is a cloth used to wipe hands, including face wipes, body wipes, and feet wipes. Knife, which is used to cut clothes, shave hair, and cut claws. Li Bo, which is a flintlock used to strike a fire. Li Bo, which is a tool used to pluck out nose hairs or thorns. Li Bo, which is a bed made of rope, which is convenient for sitting in meditation. Chapter 3285. So that's how it is. Xiaohua stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. I thought the 18 objects were some profound things, but it turns out, it's just like this. However, the Buddhist artifacts of the Buddhist sect need to be supported by the Buddhist Dharma. They need to be constantly nourished by their psyche power, so most of the Buddhist artifacts come from these 18 objects. Fu Jiwen pointed out the strangeness, because these 18 objects don't leave the monk's side every day. Forget it, thinking about the Kasaya on top of his Buddha Saraira, the 9-dragon staff, and even the clear water bottle, all of which were things that the old monk never left his body for who knows how many years ago. Xiaohua felt a bit sick of them. However, since they were all worn by the Buddha Saraira, Xiaohua didn't think of throwing them away. The fun is here. Just when Xiaohua was feeling disgusted by the Buddhist artifacts and was somewhat distracted, Fu Jiwen suddenly stood up from the chair and walked to the window with a smile. Oh! Xiaohua was also curious. He looked outside and saw that there were dozens of jade boxes lined up in front of Yu Linfeng. Each jade box was wide open, and inside were sarairas as big as chicken eggs and as small as soybeans. These sarairas were of different quality. Some emitted pure Buddhist light while others emitted multicolored light. Not only Xiaohua, who had already condensed a 4th-stage lotus platform, could tell at a glance, but even a Confucian scholar who didn't have the cultivation of a Buddhist sect could also tell. However, Yu Linfeng's voice sounded again. Fellow immortals, these are the sarairas of the Buddhist monks that my Zhai Xing Lu painstakingly found near Yu province. As for the use of these sarairas, there are Buddhist monks here, so I can't say it clearly. However, if there's anyone who doesn't know, you can go to my Zhai Xing Lu's place to look for it. All I have to say is that the Buddhist light is incomparably pure and can perfectly blend with the righteous energy of my Confucian cultivator. Haha, the base price of each of these Buddhist relics is 1 top-grade primeval stone. Damn it. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This is the hidden immortal continent. 1 top-grade primeval stone. What kind of concept is that? Just now, the true work of the great Confucian scholar only used a top-grade primeval stone as the base price. How could these relics have a base price of 1 top-grade primeval stone? What was more special was that these relics were of different qualities. Zhai Xinglu's starting price was 1 supreme-grade primordial stone. Wasn't that clearly bullying? However, someone had really stepped forward to be bullied by Zhai Xinglu. As soon as Yu Linfeng finished speaking, a voice shouted, I'll add 10 top-grade source stones for that untainted relic. This old man will add 50 upper-grade primordial stones. No, a relic of this quality can raise my nature energy by 2 grades. I'll give you 2 supreme-grade primordial stones. Ha! Fu Jiwen laughed. These people are really not afraid of trouble. Last time, when everyone made fun of these old monks, They still cared about their reputation and added upper-grade primordial stones one by one. This time, they actually added 2 top-grade primordial stones at once. Are they sure that these old monks are going to take action? Xiao Hua faintly smiled and asked, if the old monk were to go into silent meditation, this Xiao would like to see how they will deal with this. That won't happen. Fu Jiwen shook his head and said, Buddhism emphasizes that monks don't lie. Whatever they say should definitely be believed. According to this one's knowledge, every time Zhai Xinglu holds this kind of auction, they will definitely be present. All the relics will never be left behind. All of them will be bought by them. Monks don't lie? Say that again after you've seen people like Hanju? Xiao Hua was rather disapproving of this sentence, but hearing the end, Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. Then how much primordial stones will they spend? Fu Jiwen snorted and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, why don't you see who is behind them? Who? Xiao Hua seemed to have understood something, but he still asked. Behind them are the kind men and women of Burial Immortal Continent and Western Paradise Continent. The daily offerings of these trillions of kind men and women are unimaginable to ordinary people. These monks are relying on these offerings to straighten their backs and dare to challenge here. This is why they dare to say that every relic must be bought. Fu Jiwen sneered, it is also because of this, the relics here, these monks must buy them. Otherwise, they won't be able to answer to these kind men and women. Sigh. Xiao Hua listened and looked at the several monks whose expressions were calm as if they were not affected by the increasing bidding price of the relics. He sighed and said, respectfully welcoming the relics of the eminent monks back to Western Paradise Continent and letting the departed souls of these eminent monks rest in peace. This is originally a very good thing. If both sides were kind, it would be a good thing. But now one side is trying their best to raise the price, secretly rejoicing in their own gains, while the other side is fearless and unhesitatingly taking out the offerings of others. This is already not a good thing to respectfully welcome, but an evil thing to flaunt. I'm afraid this is one of the methods Buddhism uses to attract believers in Burial Immortal Continent, right? Fu Jiwen thought carefully and of course also felt sad. He nodded and said, fellow Taoist Xiao is right. Even if this one is just a bystander, watching the show, it seems like I'm also helping the tyrant. That's natural. Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the entire Bright Moon Palace. And this Zhai Xinglu is the chief evil and also the instigator. The secular people are right. Money is the source of all evil. Zhai Xinglu accumulates wealth like this. At this point, Fu Jiwen did not dare to talk nonsense anymore. Seeing that the monk from the Buddhist sect did not respond, the several Confucian scholars who had been aggressively bidding immediately lost their confidence. They began to raise the price one by one. However, the number of people who raised the price also decreased. Quite a number of people chose to withdraw. After all, not everyone was willing to try this kind of stimulation that was similar to beating drums and passing flowers. Amitabha. Suddenly, one of the few old monks who looked relatively young took a step forward. He put his palms together and bowed to the surroundings. These relics are something that my Buddhist sect must obtain. I'm sure everyone already knows that. As for the meaning of the relics, this old monk also does not want to say much. These are the wandering souls of my Buddhism sect. This old monk is under the orders of the Buddha Lord to welcome them back to Western Paradise Continent. These relics can increase a Confucian cultivator's noble spirit, but correspondingly, the negative karma in the relics will also be added to the cultivator's body. Everyone here does not understand the secret arts of my Buddhism sect and does not know how to eliminate negative karma and get rid of negative karma. In the future, you will definitely be tired of this negative karma. Therefore, this old monk advises everyone here that greed is easy to breed and negative karma is difficult to eliminate. Practicing honestly is the right path. As he spoke, the monk pointed at the dozens of relics floating in the air. These are the wandering souls of my Buddhist sect's art. My Buddha Lord is willing to redeem each wandering soul with 3 supreme-grade primordial stones. If anyone here is willing to pay a higher price than my Buddhism sect, then please go ahead. My Arhat's wandering souls cannot rest in peace in Western Paradise continent. My Buddhist sect's hundreds of millions of benefactors who sincerely worship Buddha will also not be at ease. This monk. Upstairs, Fu Jiwen was stunned. He actually dares to threaten? Looks like the Buddhism sect also has no surplus food. Xiaohua sighed and looked at Yu Linfeng. He knew this monk's threat was nothing. The only one who would suffer losses was Zhai Xing Lu. Yu Linfeng's brows frowned a little, then he laughed and said loudly, "The Buddhist sect's master has already made a big bid. I wonder which immortal friend wants to increase the price? How can there be anyone who wants to charge forward?" Fu Jiwen lost interest and walked back to the chair from the window. He sat down and said, "This is hundreds of supreme-grade primordial stones. Who can afford it?" Just now, this monk already said those harsh words. If some idiot increases the price by one supreme-grade primordial stone and these monks really give up, wouldn't this idiot cry himself to death? What if I take this idiot? Xiaohua looked at the dozens of relics, his heart beating wildly, and he almost blurted out. "Tisich." Fu Jiwen was disdainful. Fellow Taoist Xiao is neither a Confucian cultivator nor a member of the Buddhism sect. Why would you take this idiot? If you want to be, it should be someone from Zhai Xing Lu. Hiss. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly suppressed the greed in his heart. Nonsense, it was a blessing to have 3 cultivators, but from another point of view, it was a great tragedy. In this conflict between Confucians and Buddhists, he might be caught in the middle. He might as well be a Taoist loose cultivator. Why would he expose his Buddhism sect cultivation for no reason? That's true, Xiaohua nodded and looked at the scene. He smiled and said, "I bet that Zhai Xing Lu will definitely test it out." Fu Jiwen shook his head slightly. "I don't think so, because there's really no need. Let's wait and see." Xiaohua smiled but didn't say anything. Sure enough, after Yu Linfeng's words fell, no one spoke. After half a cup of tea's time, Yu Linfeng said helplessly, "If no one bids, this old man will add 3 supreme-grade primordial stones for each relic." A slightly shaky voice came from downstairs. "Damn it." Fu Jiwen almost jumped out of his chair. "This is too fake. The people downstairs, can they have hundreds of supreme-grade primordial stones? According to the rules, they have no right to bid at all." "Ha, there's no need to be so angry." Xiaohua smiled. "This is just like how young Master Duanmu tested me. Zhai Xing Lu must give the Buddhism sect face, and the Buddhism sect must give Zhai Xing Lu an answer. This auction is just a question and answer, nothing more. And this Xiao is sure that the bidder will definitely get something from this supreme-grade primordial stone." Sure enough, just as Xiaohua thought, the monk said lightly, "This old monk will add 1 supreme-grade primordial stone for each relic." That person didn't make a sound. Yu Linfeng laughed and waved his hand. The dozens of jade boxes closed at the same time and flew to the monk. The monk bowed and said, "Amitabha, many thanks to Zhai Xing Lu for your help." Chapter 3286. With a wave of the monk's yellow robes, the dozens of jade boxes disappeared at the same time. Then, with another wave of his hand, a small cosmos bag flew out of his sleeve and slowly landed in front of Yu Linfeng. "This is the ransom for the dozens of Buddhas. Yu Linfeng, please check it." "Monks don't lie. I know that." Yu Linfeng naturally wouldn't check it and accepted it with a smile. Then, when he saw the old monks turn around and leave without a word, he hurriedly shouted, "I'll see you off, masters." Amitabha. The monks left, but a Buddhist chant that was as clear as spring water was left in the auction. Haha, an eminent monk is indeed an eminent monk. Although this Buddhist chant didn't contain a trace of psychokinesis, it was enough to hear one's heart. Yu Linfeng hurriedly laughed and said, "They turned around and left without leaving a speck of dust behind. Since the masters have left, Zhai Xing Lu's auction is about to end. The treasures from the Pure Land have already fallen to the ground. Zhai Xing Lu still has some items from the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. However, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm is too dangerous for the human race. These items are not even comparable to the ones from the Pure Land. Of course, These few items are definitely the best of the best. That's why Zhai Xinglu has always placed the items from the Thousand Demons' sacred realm at the end of the auction. Come on. Yu Linfeng finished speaking and waved his hand. Caw. A bird's cry that shook the entire place was suddenly heard. An extremely small light spot flew over from afar. In the blink of an eye, the light spot transformed into a bird that was several feet large. This bird looked like an eagle, but it wore a golden crown on its head. Under the golden crown, the majestic eagle's eyes shone with a light that couldn't be looked at directly. Boom! The bird spread its wings as it landed, and thousands of streams of light flew out from its huge wings. When the bird stretched its neck and let out a long cry, the thousands of streams of light rushed into the outline of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm and turned into a few spots of light. Fellow Taoist Xiao. On the balcony, Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. I lost the bet earlier. I admit defeat. Haha, actually, you didn't lose. Xiaohua looked at the bird's shadow with interest and said with a smile, it's just that you never had the chance to come into contact with these scheming people, so you don't know what they're thinking. A loss is a loss. Fu Jiwen waved his hand. Fine, since you've lost, then tell me, what is the name of this bird? Why can it replace the Thousand Demons' sacred realm? Xiaohua pointed. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, Fu Jiwen actually shook his head and said, I know very little about the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, and I don't know what this flying beast is. If I'm not wrong, then this beast should be a great sage of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Only a great sage can represent the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Alright, then what is a great sage? Saints are supreme beings. Fu Jiwen explains, our hidden immortal continent's saints are supreme beings in the human realm. The great sage of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm is the title of the most powerful demon. Xiaohua was naturally not satisfied with this kind of answer. He waved his hand and said, if you don't know, then you don't know. It seems like you really don't know. It's not just me who doesn't know. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. The Thousand Demons' sacred realm is a place where thousands of demons gather. If we humans go there, we'll be their food. In my hidden immortal continent, other than the great grandmaster and above seniors who have the qualifications to explore the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, no one else has ever been there. If fellow Xiao asks 100 people, it's already not bad if one person can answer clearly. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Xiaohua smiled faintly. You better reveal the mystery of the top 10 Imperial equipment. I'm looking forward to it. I wonder what the number 1 Imperial equipment will be. What can it be? Fu Jiwen smiled mysteriously and said, fellow Xiao has never practiced martial arts before, so I'm afraid you don't know what it means to practice the blade for 100 days, practice the spear for 1,000 days, practice the sword for 10,000 days, right? Xiaohua was startled and asked curiously, could it be that young Master Fu has practiced martial arts before? Of course. Fu Jiwen said proudly, hidden immortal continent's Confucian scholars all have to practice the 6 arts. Martial arts, sword arts, and so on are all things that must be learned. I understand. Xiaohua nodded. The top of the top 10 Imperial equipment is the sword. Right? Fu Jiwen said with a smile. The sword is an ancient sacred item, the most revered and noble, worshipped by humans and gods. It's the ancestor of short weapons, a weapon for close combat. With its profound Tao skills, it became a legend. In fact, because it's light and convenient to carry, it's beautiful to wear, and it's quick to use, the hidden immortal continent's various dynasties, princes, emperors, marquises, scholars, swordsmen, merchants, and commoners, all of them take pride in it. Since ancient times, the sword and its skills have been unhindered in the battlefield, dominating the martial arts world, establishing a country, and upholding justice. Thus, it has been passed down to this day, and is still loved by the people of the world. With its glorious history, it's deeply rooted in people's hearts, and can be passed down without decline. The top of the top 10 Imperial equipment is precisely the tender-like water sword. Tender like water. Sword. Xiaohua seemed to have understood something. Since ancient times, the most difficult thing to erase is the grace of a beauty. The sorrow of a beauty's feelings is like flowing water. If it can't be cut off, it will be chaotic. This tender like water sword is truly outstanding. That's right. This tender like water sword is like its name, a soft sword. The entire sword is transparent like water. When placed in water, it's the same as water. The sword's body is warm. After this sword is cut off, it can automatically fuse back together. Just like feelings. It can't be truly cut off. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Xiaohua said thoughtfully, if it's only like this, how can it be the number one imperial equipment? The sharpest thing in this world is tenderness, and the most hurtful thing in this aristocratic family is also tenderness. This tender like water sword can open the heavens with water droplets. When Fujiwen talked about tenderness, his eyes unexpectedly also showed tenderness. As long as there are still feelings in their hearts, they can't escape the attack of this tender like water sword. It's said that in the past, the hidden Immortal continent's pear blossom fairy was injured and abandoned by the nobles of the Immortal palace. In a rage, she held the tender like water sword and killed her way to the Immortal palace. In front of the southern heavenly gate, her sword soared through the sky and annihilated tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers. When Empress Dowager led the Immortal Palace's Star River to kill the fairy's sword cut the Star River into two. Unfortunately, this tender like water sword was broken by the starlight in the Star River and turned into a morning star that disappeared into the horizon. The Pear Blossom Fairy even charged into the Star River with hatred, and her body and soul were destroyed. From then on, no matter what imperial equipment was born, it would be difficult for it to surpass. This tender like water sword has always been listed as the number one imperial equipment. Sigh, Xiaohua sighed. This is another sad but beautiful story. I wonder if this story is the number one imperial equipment story? Or is it tender like water sword that is the number one imperial equipment? What's the difference? Fujiwen laughed. The things you can't get are always the best. The faintly discernible legends are always the most beautiful. The memories in a person's heart are always the most profound. Strange. Hearing this, Xiaohua suddenly thought of his own wishful staff and immediately interrupted. The ancestor of short weapons, the staff is also the number one weapon. Why isn't there a staff in the top 10 imperial equipment? Staff? Fujiwen scratched his head and laughed. Fellow Taoist Xiao must be joking. A staff, isn't it just a staff? How can it be in the top 10 imperial equipment? Forget it, I won't play the lute to a cow with you. Xiaohua casually waved his hand, but before he could continue, his expression changed and he hurriedly looked at the auction hall. In front of Yu Linfeng, there was a jade slip. That's right, it was a jade slip commonly seen in the Dawn Rain continent. At this moment, it was floating in front of Yu Linfeng. Yu Linfeng said, "Fellow Taoists, this item is the jade I used by the ancient Taoists before they were destroyed by us Confucian cultivators. It should have been placed in the Taoist trifling item auction, but because this item was obtained from the Thousand Demons sacred realm, it wasn't taken out until now. This item's inspection method is different from the jade eye. After Zhai Xinglu obtained it, we searched through the ancient records and found out that this item was called a jade slip. After that, Zhai Xinglu specially found a Taoist expert and used their unique divine sense to inspect it. Only then did we find out that it was a 5 elements escape technique. Oh, to be more specific, it should be a commonly seen high-level escape technique in the hidden Immortal continent called the water avoidance technique. This item is really rare. At least, I've never heard of it before. According to the person who inspected it, after practicing this escape technique, one can borrow the water of heaven and earth's spiritual energy to fly. It's even more powerful than us using the water avoidance technique to travel in the Jianghu. When the Taoist sect was flourishing, it must have been extremely precious. However, now that the Taoist sect has declined, according to that person, there isn't even a person who can use the elementary water escape technique. How could there be someone who needs this higher level escape technique? Even when Zhai Xinglu saw that this item was of little value and wanted to sell it to that person bitterly smiled and refused. Thus, Zhai Xinglu could only bring it here to bid. It's a bit strange. Although Xiaohua was excited, he had already calmed down. He pinched his chin and said curiously, "Why did this guy say such a secret so clearly? Isn't he afraid that no one will bid?" "Ha!" Fu Jiwen at the side laughed and said, "This is the third time I've heard this. This whatever jade slip is the same as the amplifying thunderwood that I want, no one will bid for it. If not for it being more rare than the amplifying thunderwood and having a higher base price, this guy would have already taken it out when the bidding started." "What's the base price of this item?" Xiaohua hurriedly asked. "1 piece of top-grade primeval stone." Fu Jiwen was really familiar with it and said without hesitation. Xiaohua cursed loudly, "Damn it, this is indeed a rare item worth hoarding. This kind of broken jade slip is actually sold for 1 piece of top-grade primeval stone?" "Yes, this item is just like the golden core cultivation method. In some people's eyes, this item is trash. But in the eyes of others, this item is a peerless treasure." Zhai Xinglu fancied this point and would rather smash it in their hands than lower the price. The base price of this jade slip is 50 top-grade primeval stones. Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to finish speaking, Yu Linfeng cut the base price of the jade slip in half. "Damn it." Fu Jiwen immediately jumped up. "This young master has waited for this auction 3 times and that amplifying thunderwood didn't even lower the price of a single primeval stone. How can this jade slip be lowered just like that? This is too unfair." Chapter 3287. Hee, it's not unfair. It's your bad character. Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand. "I bid 51 high-grade source stones." "Io, fellow Xiao." Fu Jiwen hurriedly shouted, "You bid too early, others can see that you're determined to get it." "That's right. Since I'm determined to get it, then I naturally have to let others know." Xiaohua squinted his eyes and looked at the opposite side, where Duanmu Young Master was. 52 high-grade source stones. Sure enough, Duanmu Young Master's voice leisurely came. Xiaohua confidently said, 53. Fu Jiwen naturally understood Xiaohua's meaning. This Duanmu Young Master was probably the biggest obstacle to Xiaohua bidding for this jade slip, or even the only obstacle. No matter when Xiaohua opened his mouth, Duanmu Young Master would definitely return the favor from last time. Since that was the case, why didn't Xiaohua open his mouth earlier? AI, what a pity. Fu Jiwen stomped his feet. "Fellow Xiao, I'm afraid there are even better things later. You let him return it too early." "Not early, not early." Xiaohua also leisurely said, "I've benefited a lot from this auction. This item will be the last item to bid. I won't be able to use any of the items in the future. Besides, even if there are more in the future, I'll just continue to bid. Who would be afraid of them?" Sure enough, just as Xiaohua thought, Duanmu Young Master only bid once and didn't say anything else. It seemed to be to return Xiaohua's favor. And somewhere in Bright Moon Palace, Zhu Qing, who had been watching the entire auction with a sullen face, sighed again. AI, such a good favor, why let it go so easily? Could it be that Xiaohua really needs this jade slip? And his strength is so strong that he's not afraid of the Duanmu family? Okay, this senior bids 53 high-grade source stones. Yu Linfeng saw that the useless jade slip was finally sold as he wished, and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He clapped his hands and said, "If no one bids, this item will be this senior's." 55 high-grade source stones. Just as Xiaohua was about to call out Xiao Yi with a smile, another voice came from downstairs. Xiaohua's face turned cold. Looking up, it was the person who bid for the golden core cultivation method. "Are you crazy?" Without waiting for Xiaohua to open his mouth, Fu Jiwen scolded in sympathy. "Fellow Taoist Xiao has already helped him bid for a gold core cultivation method. How can he repay kindness with enmity? Or perhaps, his identity as a cultivator of the Tao sect has already been exposed, so he can't add insult to injury. Young Master Fu, you're using the wrong words to make things worse. You should be trying to create new problems." Xiao Hua said coldly. Hee, that's right, that's right. Fu Jiwen chuckled. After chatting with Xiao Hua for so long, Fu Jiwen felt like they were old friends at first sight. Unconsciously, he had already regarded Xiao Hua as an old friend. He won't be bidding again soon, Xiao Hua said indifferently. He raised his hand and said, 56 high-grade primordial stones. Immediately after, he muttered, could it be that this guy is blaming me for not helping him bid for the golden core cultivation method? Or do you think that I'm making fun of you? No matter what, you made me spend 2 high-grade primordial stones for nothing. Good, this fellow Taoist has increased the price. Fellow Taoist downstairs, are you going to increase the price? Yu Linfeng appeared excited again, as if every increase in price could excite him. Just as Yu Linfeng was anticipating the increase in price, below the balcony, the cultivator who had just bid screamed for no reason, and then resisted the urge to say anything else. Fellow Taoist Xiao? Fu Jiwen's eyes darted around, looking at Xiao Hua as he said in a low voice. Hee, using virtue to convince people, using virtue to convince people. Xiao Hua laughed mischievously. I've always advocated using virtue to convince people. Fellow Taoist, are you going to increase the price? Yu Linfeng was rather surprised, but he didn't have any other thoughts. After all, the Bright Moon Palace was surrounded by many experts from Star Plucking Tower, and they weren't afraid of others causing trouble. Since no one shouted to stop, it couldn't have been done by that mysterious senior upstairs. The Taoist cultivator who instigated the internal strife naturally wouldn't bid, and even the meddlesome people in the surroundings didn't dare to make a sound. Young Master Duanmu was even more bewildered as he looked at the similarly illusory window in front of him, thinking about something unknown. Yu Linfeng's anticipated climax didn't come, and he could only somewhat dejectedly point his finger, and the jade slip slowly flew towards Xiao Hua's window. Seeing the jade slip fly towards him, Xiao Hua had the urge to use heaven and earth in the sleeve, as if only by holding this item in his hand would his heart be at ease. Of course, Xiao Hua's current magic power wasn't enough to support heaven and earth in the sleeve, and the current Xiao Hua didn't seem to be as impetuous as he was back in the Dawn Rain continent. He only looked, indifferently looked, and his eyes didn't move from the jade slip at all, as if he already had a card up his sleeve, and wasn't afraid of anyone coming to snatch it from him. It was as if he was completely certain that even if this jade slip was snatched away by someone, he would still be able to take it back. Unknowingly, Xiao Hua, who seemed to be a young lad, had already begun to transform, whether it was his temperament or bearing. Perhaps it was because of time, or perhaps it was because of a great change. In short, at this moment, Xiao Hua, who hadn't recovered much magic power, and whose divine abilities weren't even 30% of his peak, actually had a confidence he never had before. Xiao Hua took the jade slip and said, should this old man hand over the origin stones to you now? Xiao Yi answered and entered, then hastily waved her hand and said, reporting to Senior, as long as there's a bid below a supreme-grade origin stone, Senior doesn't need to immediately hand over the origin stones. This is a kind of treatment for distinguished guests. No need. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand, took out a supreme-grade origin stone, and handed it to Xiao Yi, saying, this kind of treatment doesn't have any practical meaning. Senior, you'll soon know the treatment for distinguished guests. Xiao Yi took the origin stone, pursed her lips and smiled, then lowered her head and left. What kind of treatment do distinguished guests have? Xiao Hua used his divine sense to enter the jade slip, carefully probing it, and asked Fu Jiwen again. Fu Jiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He spread out his hands and said, fellow Taoist, I'm just joking. This is the first time I've entered a distinguished guest's room. How could I know the treatment for distinguished guests? However, after thinking for a moment, he probed again. If it's the most obvious treatment, it might be when bidding for the last few treasures. After a certain price, the cultivators downstairs aren't allowed to bid. They're probably afraid that they can't afford the origin stones, so they're blindly shouting there. Xiao Hua answered indifferently. Fu Jiwen couldn't clearly see Xiao Hua's appearance in the stardust, but he also understood that Xiao Hua was probing the water escape technique. After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Xiaohua put the jade slip into the space and handed it over to the green-robed Xiaohua to comprehend. At this moment, Xiaohua was really happy. Although this water escape technique wasn't a high-grade water escape technique like Yu Linfeng said, it was still a mid-grade water escape technique. After fusing with the water, it was an escape technique that relied on the water energy of heaven and earth to fly. In other words, as long as it was a place with water energy of heaven and earth, one could use this escape technique to fly. It wasn't like before where there was real water to be able to escape. As for the water avoidance technique from the West Sea, Xiaohua had already finished comprehending it with the Buddha's Saraira. That technique was very strange and required the so-called origin energy to be used. However, Xiaohua didn't know what origin energy was, so he couldn't test it out. Xiaohua closed his eyes for a moment and pondered a little. He knew that although these two water escape techniques weren't of the same origin, the realms of the escape techniques were connected. If he finished cultivating the water avoidance technique, he could naturally continue to cultivate the mid-grade water escape technique. Oh, right, isn't there someone in front of us who knows about origin energy? It's a waste not to ask. Xiaohua glanced at Fu Jiwen, who was also silently looking at the auction, and came to a realization. He hurriedly smiled and said, "Young Master Fu, I still have a question to ask. Fellow Taoist Xiao, why are you so polite? Please ask." Fu Jiwen hurriedly moved his gaze away from the window and said with a smile. Xiaohua said, "I would like to ask, what is origin energy? Is it the magic power of Confucian cultivators?" Fu Jiwen said curiously, "Taoism is magic power, Buddhism is psychokinesis, Confucian cultivators are naturally origin energy. But why do some demons' cultivation techniques also mention origin energy?" Xiaohua asked curiously, "This is what I don't understand." "Oh, I understand," Fu Jiwen said with a smile. "Does fellow Taoist know about the 9 grades of origin energy and the 27th rank?" "I naturally know about this." Xiaohua nodded. "Then it's easy to explain." Fu Jiwen explained, "Because the 3 continents have magic power, psychokinesis, and origin energy." "Oh, I'm not very clear about the 1,000 demons sacred realm. This kind of classification is too heterogeneous. However, some cultivation techniques can be used regardless of magic power, psychokinesis, or origin energy. Therefore, Confucian cultivators use origin energy to refer to all magic power, psychokinesis, and origin energy." "So it's like that?" Xiaohua nodded and said, "These Confucian cultivators are really tyrannical. Origin energy is 9 grades. The substitution of origin energy is convenient for them. It can't be helped." "Who asked the hidden immortal continent to have the most Confucian cultivators?" Fu Jiwen smiled, then pointed outside the window and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, didn't you just say that you want to look for flying equipment? Now they have already started to bid for flying demonic beasts. Why don't you take a look?" "Okay." Xiaohua responded and looked outside the window. However, he was ecstatic in his heart. Since magic power can be used as origin energy, then when his magic power is fully recovered, he can naturally use the water escape technique. In other words, he can already use the complete 5 elements escape technique. His light escape technique cultivation has indeed taken a solid step. At this moment, in front of Yu Linfeng, there is a row of over 10 eggs of different sizes, which are also emitting different kinds of bewitching brilliance. The shape of these eggs is as strange as the halo. Some are oval, some are flat, some are gourd-shaped, and there are even some that are long. There are even some eggs that are faintly flickering, as if these eggs are lightly breathing. "These are demonic beast eggs?" Xiaohua squinted his eyes and asked Fu Jiwen in a low voice. Chapter 3288. Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to answer, Yu Linfeng unfolded his fan and pretended to wave it a few times. He smiled and said, "What fellow immortals are looking at is naturally the eggs of the extremely precious birds and beasts of the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Everyone knows that the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent can't be compared to the demons of the 1,000 demons sacred realm. They can't rely on their physical bodies to fly long distances. They can only rely on flying tools and birds. Generally, flying tools requires primeval stones and primeval energy. Sometimes, it also consumes divine sense. Birds for transportation don't need to be so troublesome. As long as you communicate with them, you don't need to think too much. You can sleep and be taken away by the birds. What's more, a well-trained bird is a great help to us. They can also help you kill any evil cultivators you encounter. And these birds and flying beasts are best raised from young. Sign a blood contract with them before they hatch. If you erase the blood contract with the birds and flying beasts, then sign a new one, the bird's spirituality will disappear a lot. The eggs of the birds and flying beasts in front of me are all from the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. They weren't raised in captivity by the hidden immortal continent. Therefore, you don't need to worry about the spirituality of these birds and flying beasts after they hatch. Of course, if any fellow immortal is unlucky and can't hatch the eggs, or if the hatched demonic beast doesn't have spirituality, my Zhai Xing Lu won't take responsibility. Yu Linfeng teased a few words. He flung his fan and said, "The first egg is a cloud crane egg. The starting price is 5 high-grade primeval stones. 6, 10. Following Yu Linfeng's words, the entire auction hall became lively again. After all, these flying beasts were commonly used. Many people came here for these eggs. How could they be patient? They hurriedly bid. The fellow Taoist Xiao. Fu Jiwen stole a glance at Xiaohua. Seeing that he didn't do anything, he said with a smile, "I want to bid for a wood-attributed green crane. I hope fellow Taoist Xiao can help me." Xiaohua smiled and said, "No problem, you can bid as much as you want. It's not what fellow Taoist Xiao thinks." Fu Jiwen said with some shame, "Dao friend helped me bid for the thunder amplification wood, so I should have given all these high-grade primeval stones to Dao friend. However, I have been thinking that these upper-grade primordial stones are not enough to compensate fellow Taoist. I don't know how I can compensate or repay fellow Taoist. But now, I'm not paying attention to fellow Taoist's gift, and I'm bidding for the birds instead." "All right." Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. "There's no need to mention this again. Just now, young Master Fu gave me a lot of pointers, and that's more than enough to repay him. Young Master Fu, you can bid as much as you want. There's no need to think too much about it." "All right." Fu Jiwen sighed. "Actually, the reason why I bid for the green crane is because I want to wait for my wife to escape and take her to travel the world." "Escape?" Xiaohua raised his eyebrows, thinking that he had misheard, but Fu Jiwen seemed to have blurted it out. His face was a little embarrassed, and he immediately looked out the window, not saying another word. Since Fu Jiwen didn't say anything, Xiaohua naturally wouldn't ask anymore. Soon, the price of the cloud crane egg reached 23 high-grade primordial stones, and it was bought by a cultivator downstairs. Following that, the fire snake, blue luan, cloud howl, chick-ee, shihong, and other bird beasts were all bought by 20 or so high-grade primordial stones. Unfortunately, these bird beasts were not of the wood attribute. Fu Jiwen didn't say anything. Fu Jiwen, who always looked calm, was actually a little anxious. He stood in front of the windowsill and looked at the decreasing number of beast eggs. Fortunately, when the third last beast egg was auctioned, it was the wood attribute cloud crane that Fu Jiwen wanted, and he almost couldn't wait to bid. His bid didn't matter, but everyone was a little hesitant. After all, everyone had seen the bid for the water escape technique. Who would dare to compete with a virtuous senior? After a slight awkward silence, this cloud crane was actually bought by Fu Jiwen for 10 or so high-grade primordial stones. But at this critical moment, young Master Duanmu started to bid again. Moreover, he increased the price by 5 high-grade primordial stones twice, and still raised the price of this cloud crane to the height of 25 high-grade primordial stones. Xiaohua sneered and said in a low voice, "This is young Master Duanmu telling me that this is the last time he will be lenient. From now on, the bridge will be the bridge and the road will be the road. He won't let go again. The conflict from before. Hee, I'm afraid it can't be revealed." "Did I ruin fellow Taoist's matter?" Fu Jiwen hurriedly said. He really didn't think that much. How about, I give it to young Master Duanmu? How is that possible? Doing this is adding fuel to the fire. Xiaohua shook his head. Don't be afraid of him, this has nothing to do with you. 26 high-grade primordial stones. I want to see, what will young Master Duanmu look like after he loses his mask? After Xiaohua spoke, the entire auction house was silent. No one bid anymore, and the green crane egg flew to the window. Fu Jiwen took the green crane egg and carefully put it into the small Qiankuan bag. Looking at Fu Jiwen's relieved expression, Xiaohua suddenly asked curiously, Young Master Fu, this small Qiankuan bag can store living things? Of course. Fu Jiwen didn't find Xiaohua's ignorance strange at all, and said with a smile, Qiankuan means to form a universe of its own. Of course it can store living things. But no matter if it's the small Qiankuan bag, the Qiankuan bag, or even the Qiankuan bangles, they can't store living things for long periods of time. After a certain period of time, the living things have to come out for air. In the following few bids, other than the remaining beast eggs, there were even a dozen young beasts. Although Xiaohua hadn't seen these young beasts before, he wasn't interested in them. He had a lot of strange things in his space, and every one of them was more powerful than these young beasts. He wouldn't spend primordial stones for no reason. After the time it took to eat a meal, Yu Linfeng finally finished processing the young beasts. Then, he looked at the last golden ball of light on the outline of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, took a deep breath, and said loudly, Fellow immortals, you should all know that every time my bright moon palace bids for rare items, we leave the 3 most valuable items behind. The next item to bid is one of them. Swoosh. Once Yu Linfeng said this, everyone held their breaths and looked at the golden ball of light with rapt attention. They didn't even want to breathe loudly and quietly listen to Yu Linfeng's analysis. They really wanted to know what it was. This item. Yu Linfeng didn't even take the item and said, this item is only for the VIPs on the 3rd floor. As for the other immortals, I'm sorry, you don't have the qualifications to bid. Fellow immortal you. Just as Yu Linfeng finished speaking, someone naturally wasn't convinced. He jumped up and said, I know the rules of Star Picking Tower very well. When the price of a rare item is set, only the VIPs on the 3rd floor are qualified to bid. But this item hasn't even revealed its base price yet, so we're not allowed to bid? Could it be, this item's base price has already exceeded? At this point, the cultivator seemed to have understood something and couldn't close his mouth. This was the first time he heard that the Bright Moon Palace bid for an item with a base price of more than 10 top-grade source stones. AI, it's not just the base price. Yu Linfeng waved his hand and sighed, even if you have enough source stones to bid, you still have to consider whether you have the strength to protect this item, whether you have the life to protect this item. SII. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. With a wave of Yu Linfeng's hand, the golden light slowly flew closer. The golden light was blazing. Although it hadn't revealed its true appearance, the indescribable heat was like the scorching sun, and it already made everyone in the Bright Moon Palace feel anxious and thirsty. A feeling of difficulty arose in everyone's hearts. Unconsciously, everyone slightly narrowed their eyes, but the desire in their eyes was even more intense than the scorching sun. They stared fixedly at the light, wanting to know just how rare this item was. When the light landed in front of Yu Linfeng, it was actually dozens of feet wide. It was clear that Yu Linfeng didn't dare to approach the light and had already flown to the top of the Bright Moon Palace. At the same time, wisps of blue mist emerged from all over the Bright Moon Palace like clouds, enveloping everyone in front of it and blocking the heat. Rise. Yu Linfeng clapped his hands and a rare imperial artifact that looked like an ink brush came out of his sleeves. He let out a roar like spring thunder and reached out his hand. The brush was about to throw towards the golden light. Wait. Just at this moment, an extremely loud and clear voice that was even more shocking than muffled thunder came from the windowsill on Xiaohua's left. SII. Even someone as strong as Xiaohua's mind was shaken by this voice. Xiaohua couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air, and looked to his left in disbelief. This, This window, it seems like there hasn't been a bid. There hasn't even been a sound, right? It seems like their goal is this golden item. When Yu Linfeng heard this voice, his body naturally trembled, and the ink brush remained in his hand. However, Yu Linfeng's face didn't reveal the slightest bit of displeasure. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior upstairs, may I say something? There's no need to open this item." That voice was very imposing, and in people's ears, it seemed to resonate in their hearts. There was an inconceivable power that made people submit from the bottom of their hearts. "Yes, this little one understands." Yu Linfeng actually agreed, and withdrew his hand, putting the ink brush back into his sleeve. Cough, cough. A clear coughing sound appeared at this time, and a ball of green light floated from the night sky of the bright moon palace. Within the light, Zhu Qing had already changed into green clothes, and slowly flew down like a student rushing to take the exam. When Yu Linfeng saw Zhu Qing, he immediately sweated profusely. His usually calm expression was replaced with panic, and he hastily bowed and said, "Tower Lord, this subordinate, you can go down." Zhu Qing didn't talk to Yu Linfeng as warmly as she talked to Xiaohua. Just a few words made Yu Linfeng feel a chill in his heart. He didn't dare to ask anything, and hastily floated down from the sky. However, he still didn't dare to approach the golden light, and followed the edge of the bright moon palace to stand in the shadows. Chapter 3289. Phew! Everyone let out a long breath. The feeling of being suppressed by the dragon's might was really terrible. It was like the struggle of a drowning person before death. That kind of suffocation, that kind of helplessness, that kind of insignificance, was something that these people would probably never forget in their entire lives. This is good. What do you think?" Another arrogant voice shouted. "Do you think you can profane the dragon's remains? You can't even resist this dragon aura, yet you still dare to make a big fuss about it. Do you think the likes of you have the right to see it? Go!" Zhu Qing's face regained some color. She waved her hand and the ink brush landed in her hand. Then she pushed her hand and the dragon bone flew far away. It turned into a golden moon and hung in the night sky of the bright moon palace. "Seniors." Zhu Qing bowed again, speaking softly, "My star-picking tower has some unspeakable difficulties in bidding for this item in Bright Moon Palace. This matter was done in haste. You can see that I didn't even prepare an imperial item to block the dragon aura. You can see I was caught unprepared. Of course, there are some things that Senior blames me too early. I, Zhai Xinglu, know very well what this dragon bone is. In front of the thousands of fellow immortals from the Bright Moon Palace, I can swear that I, Zhai Xinglu, have already sent people to contact Senior. It was only after we did not receive any news from Senior that we decided to bid for this dragon bone when the Bronze Pillar country was at war with other countries. As for how Senior got the news and rushed here, I don't know the reason. I wanted to explain it to Senior face to face, but Senior seems to have misunderstood. I can only explain it here." That faint voice spoke, unknown if it meant it heard or understood. In short, when Zhu Qing heard this voice, he became spirited again and said, "However, since the bidding has already begun, I would like to invite the seniors to make their own bids. This dragon bone, especially because of the dragon horn, this item is already priceless. I do not dare to profane the dragon bone, so I would like to invite the seniors to make their own bids." Zhu Qing's words were very clear, and Xiaohua also understood. Not only did this dragon bone have some problems with its origin, but the bidding process was also very complicated. Zhai Xinglu had already known the importance of the dragon bone before the auction. He would definitely have contacted the East Sea Dragon Palace. Unfortunately, for some reason, there was no reply. Furthermore, the Bronze Pillar country was at war. Zhai Xinglu was afraid that there would be problems with the dragon bone. He was anxious to get rid of this hot potato, so he hurriedly sent the dragon bone to the auction. But what was surprising was that before the auction, someone from the East Sea Dragon Palace actually came. What's more, the person who came was very aggressive. They did not receive the message from Zhai Xinglu, but got the message from someone else. They were here to denounce Zhu Qing, so they did not listen to her explanation at all. As for Zhu Qing, it was even more difficult for her to dismount. After all, ordinary cultivators wouldn't know what items would be auctioned in this auction, but people like young Master Duanmu would definitely know. Perhaps, the item that young Master Duanmu had mentioned earlier might really be this. For this, he was willing to sacrifice 3 supreme-grade primal stones. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Zhu Qing to give the dragon bone to someone from the East Sea Dragon Palace for free. The only way was to bid. Poor child, Xiaohua looked at Zhu Qing sympathetically and thought, it seems that everything is not easy. I'll bid. Although no name was mentioned, everyone already knew that the person who bid first was from the East Sea Dragon Palace. At this time, someone in the room said, no matter how many primal stones others bid, my East will have 1 supreme-grade primal stone more than them. Hee. Before the person from the East Sea Dragon Palace finished speaking, the voice that was a little leaky laughed shrilly and said, I know that your East Sea Dragon Palace has countless treasures, but it's not only your East Sea Dragon Palace that has treasures in this world. I have 10 supreme-grade primal stones more than the East Sea Dragon Palace. Then, all the other forces entered the auction and started bidding. On the balcony, Xiaohua squinted his eyes and looked at the golden moon. He secretly pondered whether or not he should bid. Just now, the dragon might above the dragon horn was really terrifying. If it could be used on a magic weapon, it would absolutely be a sharp weapon to kill people. Oh, I forgot about it. Xiaohua suddenly patted his forehead and woke up. Damn it, it doesn't matter if I want it or not. Isn't Little White lacking this thing? If Little White needs it, I'll buy it regardless of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Thinking, Xiaohua's mind immediately turned into a jade archive. Xiaohua appeared in front of the mysterious dark cloud. This mysterious dark cloud seems to have some changes. Because he had learned from the bone that ordinary people couldn't see souls, Xiaohua paid special attention to this mysterious dark cloud. However, when he saw the heavenly marks and earth deeds on it, Xiaohua couldn't help but stare blankly. Previously, although there were heavenly marks and earth deeds outside the mysterious dark cloud, these mysterious natural objects were faintly discernible and simply couldn't be seen clearly. But now, these heavenly might could be clearly seen, as if they were carved outside the mysterious dark cloud. Moreover, there were strands of green shadows entangling the heavenly might. Those heavenly marks and earth deeds were already like a tight armor wrapping around the mysterious dark clouds, and these green shadows gave off a green glow outside the armor, adding another layer of protection. Moreover, within the heavenly marks and earth deeds, there were some faint lightning and broken threads. Even Xiaohua, who was in the Jade Archive, felt a burst of dizziness when he looked at these broken threads. Suddenly, a scene of 5 thunderbolts roaring appeared in front of his eyes. I'm afraid that the 9th heaven of spirit origin has made new progress. Xiaohua was overjoyed. His figure hid in the dark cloud. The moment Xiaohua's figure disappeared into the dark cloud, millions of lightning and broken threads were born from the dark cloud. However, as soon as Xiaohua touched Xiaohua's figure, his figure disappeared without a trace. Oh Xiaohua, you're here? When Jade Archive Xiaohua's figure appeared in the sky, the little white dragon immediately sensed it. The huge dragon head poked out from the top of the sky and called out with a smile. Xiaohua glanced at Xiaohua. At this time, the sky was incomparably spacious. Many green seal characters fluttered in the sky as if they were alive. Xiaohua's incomparably huge dragon body was already entrenched at the junction between the sky and the sky, covering the entire horizon. Those countless dark green soul strands were like seaweed in the sea, entwining the dragon body. When the soul strands danced, the dragon body also danced. Countless dark green splendors were like fireflies that filled the sky. The soul cultivator Xiaohua also transformed into 100 zhang tall giant. His whole body was not surrounded by the soul strands. His body was everywhere. I'm here, Xiaohua said indifferently. He looked at the soul cultivator Xiaohua, who ignored him and saluted. Fellow Taoist, you've worked hard. Buzz buzz. Countless green seal characters rushed out from the sea of soul strands. The soul cultivator Xiaohua's figure slowly shrank, turning into the same appearance as Xiaohua. He also cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist, I have a bone here and a soul treasure called the Soul Bridge. I don't know if I can give it to fellow Taoist to cultivate?" Xiaohua asked with a smile. Xiaohua didn't smile. He only said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist, please give it to me. Comprehending the bone and refining the soul treasure is my duty. Previously, my cultivation was insufficient and I couldn't control the ninth heaven of spirit origin. Now, with Xiaobai's help, I can barely do it." "Good." Xiaohua laughed. The bone and soul treasure were comprehended by him, and even the soul treasure was refined by him. Now that he had the help of Xiaohua, wouldn't he be able to save himself some trouble? "Fellow Taoist, please take a look." With a wave of his hand, the jade archive Xiaohua pulled the bone out of space and handed it to the soul cultivator Xiaohua. The soul cultivator Xiaohua didn't even bother to look at it. Instead, he opened his mouth, and several soul strands shot out like tentacles and swallowed the bone. Xiaohua looked at this action with a dumbfounded expression. He smiled bitterly and said, "Fellow Taoist, we are of the same origin. Can you be a bit more refined? Otherwise, don't say you know I in front of Xiaobai." Xiaohua responded indifferently. Obviously, he didn't take this to heart. Xiaohua waved his hand again and said, "This is another bone. There is a green seal character recorded in it. I haven't comprehended it yet, so I'll give it to you." Xiaohua opened his mouth again. Xiaohua hurriedly withdrew his hand, and the bone disappeared into thin air. "Give it to me." Xiaohua stretched out his hand and asked Xiaohua for it. "Pay attention to your manners." Xiaohua put the bone in Xiaohua's hand. The soul cultivator, Xiaohua, took the bone and slowly placed it in front of his forehead, pressing it against his forehead. "Good, that's how it should be." Jade Archive Xiaohua praised with satisfaction. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, Xiaohua slapped his hand down, causing a ripple to appear on his forehead. Then his knuckles sank back in. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only say helplessly, "Fortunately, this can be considered as some progress." "What about the soul treasure? Let me see it," Xiaohua asked again. It seemed that he was very bored in the nine heavens of spirit origin, and these bones and soul treasures were good things for him to pass the time. "Fellow Taoist, are you sure there is no problem?" Xiaohua still didn't dare to send the soul bridge that hadn't been refined into the mysterious dark clouds, and asked tentatively. Xiaohua said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist, if you want to take it, then take it. If you don't want to take it, then slowly refine it." Xiaohua waved his hand, wanting to drag the bone ball to the endless sky. Unfortunately, beyond his expectations, he didn't see the bone ball appear even after waving his hand a few times. How strange! Jade Archive Xiaohua looked outside the dark clouds thoughtfully and said with a faint smile, "Let's go take a look." Xiaohua turned into a green light and rushed out of the endless sky. Xiaohua naturally followed him out of the mysterious dark clouds. Outside the dark clouds, the bone ball was stuck to the surface of the mysterious dark clouds and rotating at an extremely fast speed. The bone particles had long disappeared, leaving only layers of white flashing light. As for the mysterious dark clouds where the bone ball touched, the heaven pattern earth deed was emitting a faint green light, blocking the bone ball. Moreover, where the bone ball touched, the thousands of lightning threads and broken fireflies also gathered to block the bone ball. Chapter 3290. This thing is a genuine soul item. According to the bone, it can change the shape of the soul bridge according to the soul of different people. It matches the heavenly pattern and earth deed of the soul. Only then can it enter the soul of another person. Soul cultivator Xiaohua said indifferently after taking a glance at it. "Seems I can only refine it myself." Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Really? You're underestimating me too much." Soul cultivator Xiaohua waved his hand and the bone ball fell into his hand. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of green gas that covered the bone ball. The bone ball flew into the air and entered Xiaohua's mouth along with the green gas. Then, Soul Cultivator Xiaohua rushed into the mysterious cloud, but the heavenly pattern and earth deed didn't react at all. Good, Jade Archive Xiaohua clapped his hands. That's the way to do it. That's the style of an expert. Jade Archive Xiaohua once again flew into the mysterious dark clouds. At this time, Soul Cultivator Xiaohua had already hidden himself within the soul strands. He knew that Jade Archive Xiaohua would no longer look for him. He didn't know if Jade Archive Xiaohua was cultivating the Nine Heaven Spirit origin or refining his soul bridge. Fellow Taoist, my cultivation has yet to recover. Looking at the situation outside, I'm afraid I'll have to compete with others. Only then can I have a good ending. I wonder if fellow Taoist can lend me a hand? Jade Archive Xiaohua raised his head and laughed. You want me to go out? Soul Cultivator Xiaohua didn't show himself. Instead, he spoke with a thunderous voice and thousands of green seal characters overflowed in the sky. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Jade Archive Xiaohua frowned and had a bad feeling in his heart. Do you think I can go out? Soul Cultivator Xiaohua said indifferently, I'm just a strand of your soul. Without another body, I'll turn into dust as soon as I go out. But Jade Archive Xiaohua thought of the soul inside the flying sword and was about to ask. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua naturally knew what he was thinking and immediately said, the soul on the flying sword is the carrier of the flying sword. Naturally, it can go out alone. Or perhaps, when your physical body perishes, our primordial spirits will be able to leave. As for now, it's absolutely impossible. External Incarnation Technique. Jade Archive Xiaohua suddenly thought of the body extension technique mentioned by the 10,000 Demon Realm Empress. That's right. Once you have successfully cultivated an avatar, perhaps all of us will be able to lend you a hand. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua replied, actually, you should know all of this, but you forget it, let's not talk about it. Having too many primordial divinities isn't necessarily a good thing for you. As Soul Cultivator Xiaohua's voice disappeared, Jade Archive Xiaohua's face turned awkward. Yes, as long as the Soul Cultivator Xiaohua knew, the Jade Archive Xiaohua should also know. But there was only one Jade Archive Xiaohua. What Green Robe Xiaohua? What Soul Cultivator Xiaohua? What Karmic Xiaohua? There were simply too many. There was no way he could learn all of these primordial divinities at once. He could only slowly assimilate and digest them. Forget it. Jade Archive Xiaohua sighed as he thought of the important matter. He hurriedly called Little White over and told it about the dragon bones in the auction house. Then he asked, Little White, your soul is already full. Aren't you just waiting for this body? Many thanks, Xiaohua. Whitey laughed loudly, its dragon roar echoing through the entire sky. What I want is a complete body. Not only do I want the dragon bones, but I also want the blood essence. These incomplete dragon bones. According to what you said, only the dragon horns are of some use. I can't use them. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded and said, how do you say? I can only rely on my luck in the future. Let's leave it to fate. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry to go out. Little White didn't seem to mind, and then said somewhat apologetically, it's a pity that my memories are now very fragmented. I don't know what many of them are, so I can't give you any pointers in your cultivation. I'm really sorry. This is nothing. Jade Archive Xiaohua laughed. You and I share weal and woe together. There's no need to mention these empty courtesies. And Little White's huge dragon head nodded up and down, and then said with some hesitation, with your cultivation level, I can just touch the layer of seal in your soul, but this seal is a bit strange. As for how strange it is, I'll have to enter it first. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiaohua's heart settled and said, oh right, Little White, can you see my Nine Heaven Spirit? See? Little White didn't seem to understand. After thinking for a moment, it asked, are you talking about the surroundings? Jade Archive Xiaohua's heart jumped and nodded. Again? So many soul strands, so many green lines, How can I not see it? Little White answered straightforwardly. Jade Archive Xiaohua shook his head slightly. What I mean is, when you enter here, can you see the shape of this place? I understand. You're talking about the appearance of this soul. Little White suddenly realized. That's right. Of course I can't see it. Little White laughed. Otherwise, why would I struggle with all my might when you dragged me in? You can't see it? Jade Archive Xiaohua was a little surprised. But why can I see your appearance? You can even cultivate layer by layer? Xiaohua, you have to understand. Being able to see and being able to sense are two different things. Little White explained. Moreover, the soul is fused with the body and is protected by the body. Others can't see it. A soul that has left the body can be called a soul and is no longer a soul. Perhaps it can be seen by others. Of course, even if it is the soul of the body, if there is a powerful secret technique that can surpass the protection of the body to the soul, perhaps it can be seen. Speaking to here, Little White apologized again. These are just some of my incomplete memories. I don't know if they are correct. It can be considered as a reference. And that is to say, if there is a soul sword piercing from the outside. Jade Archive Xiaohua had a trace of understanding. This is just based on feeling. In fact, no matter what, their soul sword can't see the appearance of the soul. Yes, that should be the case. Little White nodded. The soul is the most mysterious place in the body. How can it be exposed there? Then, you may not be able to see the layer of seal in my soul? And just by sensing it? The seal may be visible, but what is under the seal, I can only sense it but not see it. Little White laughed. Jade Archive Xiaohua frowned and said, Then you can slowly break the seal. I'll have to trouble you. You're welcome. Little White knew that Jade Archive Xiaohua was about to leave, and the huge dragon head retracted into the sea of soul strands. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked around. The sky was full of flickering lights and sighed. Alas, if this is a soul cultivator. It's really strange. But what's even stranger is this Xiao's Dharma eye. After speaking, Jade Archive Xiaohua retreated from the mysterious dark clouds. However, when his primordial spirit returned, he was shocked again when he looked at the auction field. He saw that the auction field, which was very lively just a moment ago, was now completely silent. Even Zhu Qing was silently standing in the air with her lips tightly shut. Although there was a trace of a smile on her face, there was a trace of strangeness in her eyes. Strange. Xiaohua was puzzled. It was only a moment. What happened? However, the bright moon, which was as bright as the sun, was still hanging there. Obviously, the bidding for the dragon bones was not over yet. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and was about to ask Fujiwen when he suddenly saw Zhu Qing's somewhat helpless expression. He came to a realization. Damn it, this is the voice transmission of the people from the Dragon Palace, young Master Duanmu, and a few cultivators who have the strength to bid for the dragon bones. Thinking of this, Xiaohua laughed in his heart. In this world, there is nothing that can't be compromised. As long as there are enough benefits, everything can be exchanged. A set of dragon bones can be measured with top-grade primordial stones, and a promise can also be measured with top-grade primordial stones. These people just now were all very aggressive. One wanted to add 1 top-grade primordial stone more than the others, and another wanted to add 10 top-grade primordial stones more than everyone else, as if the dragon bones were something that must be obtained. But in fact, only the East Sea Dragon Palace had the intention to obtain it. The others were just looting a burning house, wanting to gain benefits from it. It seems that I should have bid just now. Maybe I can even get a high-level water escape technique. Strange. Just when Xiaohua was thinking whether it was too late to bid now, Fujiwen whispered, This has been discussed for a long time, why hasn't the result come out yet? Could it be that, besides the East Sea Dragon Palace, there is someone who urgently needs this thing? For a moment, Xiaohua was dumbfounded. Xiaohua was definitely not the only smart person in this world. Although Fujiwen's cultivation was ordinary, he obviously understood the strangeness of it. What does young Master Fu think? Besides the East Sea Dragon Palace, who else needs this dragon bone? Xiao Huan naturally did not know, so he could only ask in order to advance and retreat. Fu Jiwen looked out of the window at the slightly strange third floor and whispered, "This dragon bone may be an excellent material for refining weapons in the eyes of Taoist cultivators. In the eyes of Buddhists, it is also a material for refining Buddhist weapons. In the eyes of the East Sea Dragon Palace, it is the remains of a senior to be revered and collected. But in the eyes of Confucian cultivators, the most important thing is the fate of the royal family." What? The fate of the royal family? This dragon bone has something to do with fate? That's right. Fu Jiwen nodded. The fate of the royal family is related to the amount of imperial qi of the royal family descendants. And the dragon aura on the dragon bone, especially the dragon horn, can be transformed into imperial qi with the help of Confucian cultivators' secret techniques. Xiao Hua understood and glanced at the third floor's windowsill. There must be a royal family of the Bronze Pillar country on the third floor? Also, Zhai Xinglu is eagerly bidding for this dragon bone, probably because they are afraid of attracting the attention of the royal families of various countries. Especially the royal family of the Bronze Pillar country. There is definitely no royal family of the Bronze Pillar country here. Fu Jiwen said decisively. There can only be the royal family of another country. And the king of the Bronze Pillar country is definitely not in the country. The regent should be the crown prince, and the relationship between the crown prince and Zhai Xinglu is ordinary. Chapter 3291. Yes. When Xiao Hua heard that Fu Jiwen was able to read so much information from it, he couldn't help but feel surprised. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he couldn't help but be convinced. He nodded and said, if the king of the Copper Pillar country was here, this dragon bone would definitely be left in the royal family of the Copper Pillar country. But since the dragon bone is being auctioned here, your king must not know. Since he doesn't know, Zhai Xinglu won't inform the other royal family members. Otherwise, Zhai Xinglu won't exist in Bronze Pillar country. Those who can come can only be the royal family of other countries. But the problem is, since the East Sea Dragon Palace is here, which royal family is not afraid of the East Sea Dragon Palace and dares to compete with them? Hearing this, Xiao Hua finally understood Fu Jiwen's real doubts. Xiao Hua shrugged and said with a smile, the hidden immortal continent is so big, who knows? Xiao Hua stopped talking. Nonsense, Zhai Xinglu organized the bidding for the dragon bone in such a hurry? How could they invite all the royal families of the hidden immortal continent? It must be the royal family of Yuzhou or the vicinity of Yuzhou. Although there were many royal families, Fu Jiwen must know these royal families like the back of his hand with the practice of reading 10,000 books and traveling 1,000 miles. Even he found it strange. There must be a secret behind this matter. There were many secrets in this world, and the answers to these secrets were definitely known by someone. However, as for who that person was, that was another mystery. However, the secret of this matter is obviously not something the cultivators of Bright Moon Palace can know. Just as Fu Jiwen was racking his brains to calculate, the voice of the East Sea Dragon Palace sounded again. Young Master Zhu, this old man wants to buy this item. Then, the voice disappeared again. But seeing Zhu Qing's expression lighten, he shouted again, okay, we'll do as Senior says. This item belongs to Senior. Saying this, Zhu Qing waved his hand, and the ink brush flew out from his sleeve and rushed to the balcony on the third floor. Hee, how can this old man use Zhai Xinglu's item? A strange sound was heard again. Woo! A gust of wind suddenly came from a balcony on the third floor. Immediately, the golden full moon was elongated. The dragon might that appeared earlier rushed everywhere again. However, this time, it seemed to be a demonstration of the East Sea Dragon Palace. The dragon might disappeared as soon as it appeared. Then, the golden brilliance fell somewhere on the third floor. Inside the Bright Moon Palace, the golden light disappeared, and the ink brush fell from the sky. Zhu Qing flew over and caught the ink brush, but didn't fly back. Instead, she stood there silently. When Yu Linfeng saw this, he hastily flew out from his hiding place. At this moment he had already regained his smile and naturally cupped his hands towards the surrounding people. Fellow immortals, I've made you wait for a long time. Embark. There aren't many opportunities left for us to bid. If any fellow immortals are still hesitating, don't say I didn't warn you. If you miss this village, there won't be another shop like this one. If you want to find another good treasure like tonight's auction, I'm afraid it won't be too possible. This guy really knows how to talk. Xiaohua smiled. Yu Linfeng's words covered everyone's awkwardness and his own mistake. He even teased them a few times, which eased the atmosphere by quite a bit. Suddenly, Yu Linfeng slapped his forehead again, as if he had just woken up. He shouted, I'm afraid I was wrong. Everyone has been waiting for this moment, right? Waiting to bid. Flying Imperial equipment, right? As he spoke, Yu Linfeng tapped the folding fan in his hand. A small boat flew over from the distant light spot. The boat's bow trembled as if it was riding the waves. This is an ink boat personally made by a disciple of hidden Immortal Continent School of Moism. It has the School of Moism's unique symbol. It's the real deal. Yu Linfeng seemed to have grasped the rhythm of the auction. He regained his confidence and introduced it with a smile. School of Moism? Xiaohua heard this from upstairs and asked Fu Jiwen, School of Moism should also be one of the schools of the 100 schools of thought, right? Indeed. Fu Jiwen nodded and said, this school of Moism is very powerful. It's second only to Confucianism. Previously, there was a saying that anyone who wasn't a Confucian was a school of Moism. The founder of School of Moism was Mod. Later on, he was revered as Z or Mozi. This school of thought uses love with impartiality, mutual benefit, as its basis. Impartiality means to see others as oneself. Love with impartiality means to love others as oneself. Love with impartiality can achieve the goal of mutual benefit. Politically, they advocate for virtuousness, unity, and non-aggression. Economically, they advocate for a strong economy and frugality. Ideologically, they advocate for respecting the heavens and ghosts. At the same time, they also advocate for non-life, emphasizing on relying on one's own strength. Love with impartiality, non-aggression, virtuousness, unity, frugality, non-happiness, heavenly will, understanding ghosts, and non-life. This is what all disciples of School of Moism must practice. If it's only like this, then this School of Moism can't be considered powerful. Fu Jiwen said again, School of Moism is unique in 2 points. First, School of Moism has a strict organization. Most of its members come from the lower strata of society. According to legend, all of them are willing to go through fire and tread on knives to inspire themselves. Their disciples who engage in debating are called Mabian. Those who engage in martial arts are called Maxia. Their leaders are called Zi. Their discipline is strict and clear. According to legend, School of Moism, those who kill will die, those who injure will be punished. Oh? Isn't that a ranger? Hearing this, Xiaohua came to a realization. He originally thought that a ranger was something from Confucianism. He didn't expect that it was actually from School of Moism. Yes, a ranger is from School of Moism. Fu Jiwen nodded. However, that's an ancient matter. In today's 100 schools of Confucianism, which youth doesn't want to be a free and unfettered ranger? Which school doesn't have a few rangers whose names will be remembered for hundreds of generations? Then what's the second powerful point? Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something. Is it this flying device? Correct. What fellow Taoist Xiao thinks is correct. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. According to legend, Senior Moism is an expert in craftsmanship. His wisdom and dexterity far surpass the other schools of Confucianism. He can be said to be knowledgeable and multi-talented. It is said that he can instantly cut a 3-inch piece of wood into an ingenious object that can carry more than 600 kilograms. This ingenious object doesn't rely on noble spirit. According to Han Fizi Y Chuashuazwa, Moism is a wood kite. It took him 3 years to succeed and 1 day to fail. Even in ancient times, in order to teach the people, Moism even used leverage to develop oranges to carry water. He also made pulleys, ladders, and so on for production and military purposes. He was also an expert in city defense techniques, the so-called Moism. His disciples summarized his experience into the 21 chapters of city defense. These mechanical techniques of his are the embryonic form of our current Confucianism's imperial equipment. It can be said that Confucianism's imperial equipment came from school of Moism. Unfortunately, Moism's views are tit for tat with Confucianism. He opposes the system of feudal officials and advocates valuing the virtuous. When appointing officials, one must pay attention to talent. He breaks the old concept of hierarchy and makes officials impermanent and the people impermanent. Therefore, in ancient times, Confucianism and school of Moism fought very fiercely. School of Moism was suppressed by Confucianism to the point of choking. Looks like this esoteric debate is also a matter of luck. School of Moism's luck is far inferior to Confucianism's. Xiaohua says with a smile. This Xiao does not understand the essence of school of Moism, but it sounds somewhat similar to my Taoist refiners. Indeed. Fu Jiwen nods and says, most of the Confucianism's refiners are basically school of Moism's disciples. Although they don't admit it. Moreover, speaking to here, Fu Jiwen pauses for a bit. He glances at Xiaohua and says, previously I told fellow Taoist about the mysterious demon god chess, right? On the hidden immortal continent, there is a rather strange saying. That is, the demon god chess was originally owned by school of Moism. Senior Moism obtained a lot of enlightenment from the demon god chess. The mechanism technique and the refining technique also originated from the demon god chess. Hiss. Hearing this, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, Fu Jiwen's understanding of the godly devil chess, the most mysterious of the 10 great imperial artifacts, could be considered vague. But now, Fu Jiwen's last sentence made Xiaohua feel somewhat enlightened. The godly devil chess, the 6 great generals, the 6 great demon realms, weren't they puppets? It's just that this kind of puppet is really high level and can resist a real cultivator. That's right, young Master Fu, Confucianism also has puppets, right? Puppets? Fu Jiwen stares blankly for a moment. Soon after, he somewhat understands and says with a smile, fellow Taoist Xiao should be talking about puppets. Puppets? Xiaohua has never heard of this name. He tries to probe. Is it to take some materials and refine them, and then listen to the orders of the refiner like a human? Yes, it's puppets. Fu Jiwen nods and says, fellow Taoist Xiao is right. School of Moism indeed has this method to make puppets. This is not rare in the hidden immortal continent. Oh, if you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have noticed. Puppets didn't appear in today's auction. Then that's it. Xiaohua nods. That demon god chess should be the puppets that school of Moism is talking about. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Fu Jiwen shakes his head. There are many people in the hidden immortal continent who are as knowledgeable as fellow Taoist Xiao. They didn't say anything, I'm afraid. Fu Jiwen doesn't finish, but obviously, Bing doesn't agree with what Xiaohua says. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Xiaohua laughs. School of Moism is an aristocratic family of mechanics. They are also the best at imperial artifacts. Their strength cannot be underestimated. They are the strongest opponent of Confucianism. This. Fu Jiwen mutters, how can the demon god chess be puppets? Who can control such a powerful puppet? Furthermore, the biggest opponent of Confucianism is no longer school of Moism. Xiaohua naturally doesn't have any evidence to say that the demon god chess is a puppet. Everything is just a guess. But Fu Jiwen mutters in the end, he laughs again. This Xiao naturally knows. Currently, Confucianism's opponent is Buddhist sect. Although it's a tripartite balance of power, it seems that Thousand Demons' sacred realm isn't too interested in Pure Land and hidden immortal continent. This. Fu Jiwen sees that School of Moism's ink boat has already been sold out. He subconsciously reminds, fellow Taoist Xiao, If you want to freely gallop in the hidden immortal continent, having a good spirit beast or flying imperial artifact is the best choice. Fellow Taoist Xiao didn't bid for the previous spirit beast, it's better to bid for an imperial artifact. Chapter 3292. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua waves his hand. He has the refining method of Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunderboat in his space, as well as enough materials. If given time, refining a real Thunderboat is not a problem. Who cares about some ink boat? Tell me, why is Moism not the opponent of Confucianism? Then Buddhism and demons are also not the biggest threat to Confucianism? Alas. Fellow Xiao, haven't you heard that those who are defeated internally must be defeated externally? Or should I say, to resist external aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs? Fu Jiwen sighs and says, nowadays, the biggest problem of Confucianism is not Buddhism, but themselves. What do you mean? Xiao Hua is surprised. Isn't this hidden immortal continent the world of Confucianism? Fellow Xiao, you know the words political and martial arts, right? Of course, who doesn't know those who have read books? Xiao Hua is somewhat baffled. Political and martial arts are naturally used to govern the world. Fu Jiwen says in a low voice, but what about martial arts? That is to use martial arts to expand the territory. Isn't this normal? Xiao Hua scratches his head. What's so strange about it? If it's just one school's opinion, it naturally doesn't matter. But if it's two schools' debate, one specialized in martial arts and the other in political, then wouldn't it be contradictory? Fu Jiwen's voice is even lower. Xiao Hua is speechless, looking at the flying equipment that is still bidding. He doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. What young master said is too vague, I can't understand it. In ancient times, the one who opposed Confucianism was Moism. Now, Moism's disciples are reduced to great masters. They don't pose a threat to Confucianism, but Confucianism's disciples are proficient in the 6 arts, but after all, they are scholars. They are often ridiculed for not having the strength to truss a chicken. Now, the one who opposes Confucianism is militarism. Fu Jiwen finally says hidden immortal continent's biggest worry. Militarism? Xiao Hua is speechless. He naturally doesn't know what militarism is. Fu Jiwen is already used to Xiao Hua's ignorance. He patiently explains, the ancestor of militarism is the outstanding military expert Sun Wu. This senior is also respected as a son, his grandson. His work is the famous military book, Sun's Art of War. It was a military masterpiece, the earliest military book on the hidden immortal continent. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated, and other military sayings came from this book. Even now, it enjoyed a great reputation on the hidden immortal continent. Many academies listed it as a must-study book. The militarists are opposed to empty talk of benevolence and righteousness. They advocate victory and strength, so the world is convinced. Of course, this is only their school's opinion. The most terrifying thing is their martial arts. Fu Jiwen continued, the art of war may be a contest between countries, but martial arts is a direct attack on the Confucians' refined politeness, ruling the world with etiquette and winning people with virtue. Use virtue to win people over, use virtue to win people over, This Xiao rubbed his nose, his heart filled with sorrow. If literary governance is the ideology of Confucianism, then martial arts is the ideology of the school of military strategy. Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. The Confucian school uses words to contain the noble spirit and uses it to defeat the enemy. The militarists, on the other hand, use their fists, kicks, and martial techniques to trigger the noble spirit and use it to win. And this Xiao seems to understand a little. Xiao Hua understood martial techniques, so he naturally knew the difference. He nodded. It's a pity that martial techniques have a high requirement for one's aptitude. What was special was that there were actually 2 fish-shaped imperial tools, which opened Xiao Hua's eyes. After Yu Linfeng finished bidding for these flying imperial tools one by one, He looked at the two balls of light above the hidden immortal continent and above the thousand demons' sacred realm. He took a deep breath and said, "Fellow Taoists, the tense moment has finally arrived. There are still two things that have not been shown to fellow Taoists in this auction. Aside from the treasure of the thousand demons' sacred realm, these are the two most precious things. Similarly, these two things can only be bid for by the VIPs on the balcony. Fellow Taoists below the balcony, due to the lack of primeval stones that my Zhai Xinglu has, we cannot bid. Please forgive us, fellow Taoists. This time, when everyone heard Yu Linfeng's words, no one dared to be noisy. The last two treasures were on par with the dragon bones. They were absolutely priceless treasures. When the dragon bones appeared, everyone had suffered a lot. Now, they naturally knew that this treasure wasn't something they could get their hands on. The only thing they could do was look at it and enjoy it. Fellow Taoist Yu, this auction is really long. Hurry up and explain the treasures that are about to be auctioned." A voice urgently said, "Although we don't have enough primeval stones to bid, it's good to be able to broaden our horizons." But Yu Linfeng raised his hand and pointed his fan. The light above the hidden immortal continent slowly flew over. However, under everyone's expectant gazes, it only flew halfway before stopping. Yu Linfeng continued, "Fellow Taoists, have you heard of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot?" Yu Linfeng's words were truly shocking. Everyone was stunned after hearing this. The cultivator who asked the question almost stuttered, Fellow Taoist Yu, are you sure you're not mistaken? This Scarlet Emperor, is it one of the 5 ancient heavenly emperors? The one that killed the 1,000 demon sacred realms Kunpeng and fought against immortal Emperor Gochen for 1,000 years? Yu Linfeng, this is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot that he used to command thousands of generals and defeat immortal Emperor Gochen? Another person hastily shouted. It seemed that this Scarlet Emperor and Scarlet Emperor's war chariot were something that everyone on the hidden immortal continent knew about. Fellow Taoists. Yu Linfeng hastily smiled and said, "Don't worry, didn't I already say before? Our Zhai Xinglu's auction won't have anything too rare." "You don't mean what you say, fellow Taoist Yu. That dragon bone just now, isn't it rare?" Before Yu Linfeng could finish, someone interrupted him. Yu Linfeng wasn't angry and smiled. There are exceptions to everything, right? The dragon bone just now was personally bid by my lord, and this item was bid by me. Do you think this is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot? Ha! Someone on the 3rd floor laughed. If it really is the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, then I'm afraid we don't have the qualifications to be VIPs here. Fellow Taoist Yu, hurry up and reveal it. Yes, senior. Yu Linfeng heard this and hastily bowed. He pointed the fan in his hand and the light that stopped in the air flew over again. As it flew closer, a silhouette of several feet in size appeared. Before anyone could see it clearly, there was a loud bang, and a crimson flame rushed out from the brilliance. A feeling of being burned by fire involuntarily arose in everyone's hearts. Moreover, the fiery red light was very glaring. Everyone's eyes were once again blinded by the glare. However, even with their eyes closed, the simple and unadorned yet ferocious battlefield was still reflected in everyone's eyes. Good heavens, this war chariot is really powerful. Xiaohuan narrowed his eyes and felt the hot aura of the battlefield. He couldn't help but whisper, "The material used to make this war chariot is very special. It can emit fire-type spiritual energy. The cultivator who drives this war chariot can use this war chariot to display power that is even more powerful than a magic treasure. Moreover, this war chariot itself contains a baleful aura, full of blood and resentment. Even if it isn't the real Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, it must have gone through thousands of battles, and tens of thousands of people must have died under this war chariot. If one sits on this war chariot and flies, not to mention its awe-inspiring, even some cowardly cultivators would have to hide far away. If one were to fight with others, it would make them tremble in fear, and they wouldn't be able to display even 70% of their cultivation. Shua! Yu Linfeng, whose face was also illuminated by the scarlet flame, took out a palm-sized jade bottle from his bosom. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottle emitted a misty light. It was like a layer of gauze that completely covered the war chariot, and the scarlet flame was contained within the gauze. Fellow immortals! Yu Linfeng clapped his hands and laughed. This is a replica of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot. It's called the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. Although this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is a replica of the Scarlet Emperor's war chariot, its size and carvings are exactly the same. What's special is that this Scarlet Flame War Chariot was also owned by a general who commanded tens of thousands of troops. He also relied on this war chariot to achieve great achievements on the battlefield. It's not convenient for me to announce the specific details of this Scarlet Flame War Chariot here. However, what I can reveal to fellow immortals is that this war chariot's entire body is made from a complete piece of fire spirit stone. Sealed within it are the soul essences of 3 fire spirit beasts. Without the strength of 4th grade essence energy, it is impossible to control it. Chapter 3293. Hiss. All the cultivators were shocked. A whole piece of fire spirit stone? How many top-grade primordial stones will it cost? Fire spirit stone is precious, but don't forget the 3 fire spirit beasts inside. Those are fire-bathing spirit beasts. They were extinct in ancient times. Xiaohua didn't care about the material of the Scarlet Flame War Chariot, but after hearing about the fire spirit stone, he hurriedly scanned it with his divine sense and couldn't help but groan. Oh my god, this is a fire essence flame crystal. Such a big piece of fire essence flame crystal is actually made into a war chariot. And there are 3 spirit beasts' souls inside. If it's a real Scarlet Emperor war chariot, what will it look like? Of course, Xiaohua also understood that the Scarlet Emperor war chariot must look like this Scarlet Flame war chariot, but he just couldn't imagine that there was a material more precious than the fire essence flame crystal. This was what they meant by there was no best, only better. Not bad, this war chariot is excellent, I like it very much. Little friend Yu, how much is this war chariot? A faint voice came from the room of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Senior, the starting price of this war chariot is 50,000 top-grade primordial stones. Yu Linfeng hurriedly said respectfully, every increment is 1,000 top-grade primordial stones. Okay, I bid 50,000 top-grade primordial stones. The person from the East Sea Dragon Palace opened the bidding without hesitation. Your East Sea Dragon Palace is in the East Sea, the water element primordial chi is rich. What use can the Scarlet Flame War Chariot be in the East Sea? A woman's voice said faintly, I bid 60,000 top-grade primordial stones. Sister already has so many ceremonial guards, why do you still need this war chariot? This little sister just so happens to be lacking a carriage, so this item can be given to this little sister. Another delicate girl spoke up. This little sister bids 61,000. I bid 65,000. Xiaohua didn't show any weakness. This was a big piece of fire essence flame crystal. The price of 60,000 top-grade primordial stones was definitely not high. Moreover, Xiaohua really liked this war chariot and wanted to use it as a means of transportation. 67,000. An old man at the side immediately said. On the contrary, young Master Duanmu, whom Xiaohua was worried about, did not bid. However, Xiaohua understood after thinking for a bit. Young Master Duanmu had the dragon horse and the golden carriage. Naturally, he did not need this Scarlet Flame War Chariot. There were many VIPs who had taken a liking to the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. In just a few moments, the price had been raised to 100,000. However, it was clear that this price was far from the limit. The people on the 3rd floor leisurely increased the price bit by bit. Meanwhile, the people downstairs were already dumbfounded. Previously, the bidding for the dragon bone was done through voice transmission, so they did not hear it. But now, the number of top-grade primordial stones that had not been decided had far exceeded their expectations. For a time, all kinds of envious and jealous gazes fell on the blurry balcony on the 3rd floor. Apart from the East Sea Dragon Palace, who were the other clans? Everyone was whispering and guessing. Naturally, Xiaohua's identity had also become a mystery. Everyone was guessing who the person who had previously competed with young Master Duanmu was and who had now suddenly bid for the Scarlet Flame War Chariot was. In the crowd, there was a stardust figure whose gender could not be determined, and whose height could not be determined. He did not talk to anyone and only coldly raised his head. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the illusory balcony. He seemed to be carefully observing and also seemed to be carefully distinguishing the cultivator who was competing with him for the cultivation method. As the number of primordial stones increased, the number of people bidding also decreased. In the end, only Xiaohua and two girls were bidding. After Xiaohua called out a number, the entire auction house was silent. The two girls stopped, as if they had retreated. Yu Linfeng's face was flushed red as he said loudly, "If the two seniors do not increase the price, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot will be this senior's." Then Yu Linfeng said to Xiaohua, "Senior, you should know that this war chariot is really rare. If Senior wants to take this war chariot, you must first complete the transaction of primordial stones." Xiaohua faintly smiled and was about to call Xiao Yi in. But at this time, a slightly weak voice spoke. "Fellow Immortal Yu, please wait a moment." "Oh?" Yu Linfeng raised his eyebrows. "Senior wants to bid?" "Hee." Following the girl's chuckle, a light smoke like fog appeared from the windowsill. In a moment, the three-story balcony was covered. The people downstairs were immediately separated from the third floor. The fog blocked everyone's vision and divine sense. In front of Xiaohua's eyes, the source of the voice came from. As the fog gushed out, a window was slowly pushed open. The face of a girl in her 20s appeared in front of the window. This woman's skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were as bright as stars. Her two faint eyebrows were black without drawing, and her small cherry lips carried a graceful smile. Coupled with her light red palace dress, she could make 100 flowers blush to death. Looking at her fairy-like features, Xiaohua was momentarily dazed. Her beauty was completely different from Xue and fairy Hongxia. Other than her innate beauty, it was more of an aura and charm that she had nurtured. "Fellow Immortal." The girl opened her mouth. Her voice was still somewhat weak, and her brows were slightly furrowed. This caused Xiaohua's heart to ache. He couldn't help but want to speak. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could speak, Fu Jiwen had already spoken. "Fairy, if you have something to say, please speak. This junior is all ears." Hee. The girl pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "Little friend, this servant is Princess Bai Hua of Liang Province's Jianghu country. My name is Xian. This Scarlet Flame War Chariot is exactly what this servant needs. I wonder if little friend can explain it to your esteemed teacher?" Hearing this, Fu Jiwen's face turned red. He looked at Xiaohua somewhat embarrassedly and hurriedly shut his mouth. His eyes didn't dare to look at Princess Bai Hua. Xiaohua looked at Princess Bai Hua's beautiful face. He circulated God's guidance in his body but didn't find anything strange. He knew in his heart that Princess Bai Hua didn't use any soul-sucking secret technique. Everything was based on her own beauty. This kind of beauty even made him slightly dazed. Fu Jiwen's answer really didn't count for anything. "So it's Princess in front of me. I really am a bit rude." Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. "This servant has already told fellow Immortal my name. Fellow Immortal shouldn't be so stingy, right?" Princess Bai Hua looked somewhat embarrassed and angry. However, this embarrassment and anger made people feel inferior. Xiaohua only cursed himself in his heart for being foolish. The girl had already told him her name. He was actually such a bastard that he didn't even tell her his name. "I, Xiaohua, greets Princess." "Oh, so it's fellow Immortal Xiao." This servant really hasn't heard of fellow Immortal's name. Princess Bai Hua's face was filled with astonishment. "May I know where fellow Immortal is cultivating?" This Xiao was originally a loose cultivator from overseas. Princess not knowing the servant's name is really too normal. "Fellow Immortal Xiao, do you have a place to stay?" Princess Bai Hua hurriedly smiled and said, "Although my Jianghu country wasn't founded by a Taoist sect, We still welcome capable people like fellow Immortal Xiao. If fellow Immortal Xiao doesn't mind, you can come to my Jianghu country to be the country's teacher. Xiaohua almost agreed. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he immediately came to his senses and said with a smile, "Princess has misunderstood. This Xiao's cultivation is shallow. How could I dare to be the country's teacher? Princess, if you have something to say, just say it. This scarlet flame war chariot, this Xiao really likes it? Hee, since fellow Immortal Xiao is so straightforward, this servant won't be polite." Princess Bai Hua smiled again. It was really like 100 flowers blooming. Scarlet Flame War Chariot, as the name suggests, is a war chariot. It's not a simple flying imperial equipment. It's used for battle. If fellow Immortal Xiao doesn't want to lead troops in battle and doesn't want to be the commander of 10,000 troops, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is really not as suitable as those flying imperial equipment from before. Hee, this Xiao doesn't want to be the commander now, but it doesn't mean that I won't be able to in the future, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Princess Bai Hua slightly nodded her head. Fellow Immortal Xiao, this servant congratulates you in advance for having this ambition. However, fellow Immortal Xiao, this is your future ambition. This servant needs this Scarlet Flame War Chariot right now. This servant is now facing a battle, and this Scarlet Flame War Chariot is a great help for this servant. Forget it, I won't hide it from fellow Immortal Xiao. This servant will tell you the truth. My Jianghu country has always had a princess take over the throne. Like this servant, there are 2 other princesses who are qualified to take over the throne. The country wants to choose one of the 3 of us to take over the Jianghu country. Naturally, there are methods to choose. One of them is to be the commander and fight. With this Scarlet Flame War Chariot, this servant will be like a tiger that has grown wings, increasing my chances of success by 10%. Speaking to this point, Princess Bai Hua slightly hesitated. She looked to the side and said, Murong family's big sister originally also liked this war chariot and wanted to use it as her ride. However, after hearing this servant's difficulties, she already gave this war chariot to this servant. Sigh. A voice of hidden bitterness sounded like the cry of a group of kingfishers. That so-called Murong family's big sister opened her mouth and said, Your Highness Princess, you can just say what you want. Why do you have to drag this servant into the water? Hee, this servant only pulled on Murong family's banner, that's all. Elder sister doesn't need to mind. Princess Bai Hua laughed. Even Xiao Hua had the heart to reprimand her, let alone Murong family's elder sister. Forget it, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, Although this war chariot is not bad, this Xiao has the heart to take it. However, since Princess has a more important matter, this Xiao can give it to you. Hee, this servant knew that fellow Immortal Xiao would give this servant face. Princess Bai Hua was overjoyed, and this servant will also remember fellow Immortal's favor. In my Jianghu country's treasury, there are some Taoist magic treasures as well as some cultivation methods and secret techniques. However, this servant does not have them with me. If possible, when you have free time, fellow Immortal can come to my Jianghu country. This servant will return this favor to fellow Immortal. Good, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, As you wish. Good. Princess Bai Hua faintly smiled and stretched out her hand. Her fingers that were whiter than white jade waved. A white flower flew through the pink mist and landed in front of Xiao Hua. Princess Bai Hua's voice sounded in Xiao Hua's ear, This is this servant's token. Fellow Immortal can use this thing to report in front of this servant's palace door. Chapter 3294. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Hua looked at the flower that was like an ice sculpture. He reached out his hand and caught it. He put it in front of his nose and sniffed it. He said, If possible, this Xiao hopes that the palace door is the palace of the Queen of Jianghu country. As you wish. When the time comes, this princess will hold a banquet for you in the palace. Princess Bai Hua laughed a few times. Her long sleeves fluttered, and the pink fog slowly disappeared, revealing the auction field. Seeing that the fog had dissipated, Yu Linfeng cautiously asked, I wonder which senior withdrew? This old man has limited primeval stones. This old man withdraws. Xiao Hua said indifferently. Boom. The entire auction field exploded again. Many people didn't expect that the aggressive Xiao Hua would actually withdraw in the end. Good, if so, this Scarlet Flame War Chariot will be the senior's. Yu Linfeng didn't hesitate and said, Senior, please hand over the primeval stones to Xiao Yi, this one will send the war chariot to Senior's window. Tiske, so this is Princess Bai Hua of Jianghu country. Xiao Hua indifferently looked at the Scarlet Flame War Chariot flying toward Princess Bai Hua. Fu Jiwen at the side exclaimed, This one has long heard that Jianghu country has many beauties. The queen and the princess are peerless beauties. Now that I see them, they are really rare in the world. The queen of Jianghu country is a woman? Those who compete for the throne are also princesses? What about those princes? What about the queen's husband? Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, Fellow Xiao may not know, this Jianghu country is full of women, there are no men. Even the women of Jianghu country give birth to girls. I don't see half a boy. Ah? Then how do they get pregnant? Xiao Hua was a bit flabbergasted. Fu Jiwen shrugged his shoulders and shook his head in a strange manner. Every year, there is a Tilian festival in the Jianghu country. It lasts for 7 days. Any young man in the hidden Immortal continent can come to the Jianghu country. If any man is fancied by a woman of the Jianghu country, the fellow Taoist Xiao, Damn, this is really strange. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted when he heard this. He unconsciously looked at the plain flower in his hand, and a thoughtful expression appeared in his eyes. At this moment, a cold voice drifted into his ears like gossamer. The flowers are good, and the color is beautiful. However, if they all carry the poison of snakes and scorpions, I'm afraid they will all take one's life. Oh! Xiao Hua wasn't familiar with that voice, but he could tell that it was the voice of the woman from the Murong family who had just spoken. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. After thinking for a moment, he cupped his hands and transmitted his voice. Fellow Immortal, if you have anything to say, you can say it. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's voice was like a clay ox entering the sea. The woman from the Murong family simply ignored him. What does this person mean? Is it a warning? Xiao Hua thought to himself, but this Xiao doesn't know her at all. Moreover, she seemed to be very familiar with Princess Bai Hua of the Jianghu country. There's no need for her to speak ill of Princess Bai Hua behind her back for this Xiao, right? Forget it, I'm afraid, this person has other intentions. Xiao Hua really didn't understand the woman's thoughts. Looking at the source of the voice, he waved his hand and stored the white flower into his space. Pitiful Xiao Hua. Although he was already so old, had dual cultivation with her, and had even been tormented by Fairy Hong Xia's jealousy, in the end he still didn't understand women. This warning had nothing to do with whether Xiao Hua and the woman from the Murong family knew each other. As for what's different, we'll talk about it after fellow immortals take a look. Fellow immortal you. A cultivator anxiously said, could it be that this demonic beast can only be bid for by the distinguished guests upstairs? Yu Linfeng nodded and said, that's right. In the end, these 2 rare items can only be bid for by the distinguished guests upstairs. Sigh. That person wanted to say something, but thinking about the hundreds of thousands of top-grade primordial stones, he immediately shut his mouth. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Linfeng pulled the ball of light in front of him. When the light dissipated, everyone was stunned again. This was because in the air, a crystal that was several feet in size appeared out of thin air. Inside the crystal, there was a white horse that was 3 feet in size. Aside from its snow-white body, there was nothing special about this white horse. Although its white mane that looked like it was fluttering in the wind was extremely vivid inside the crystal, it was just a little lifelike. No one could see what was special about this thing. Fellow immortal you're not mistaken, right? Someone anxiously said downstairs, isn't this just an ordinary white horse? What's so strange about it? That's right, if it was a white dragon horse, there would be dragon patterns in its eyes and a faint golden light around its body. But this white horse's eyes are pure and there's not a trace of golden light around its body. It doesn't have the bloodline of a dragon. That's not right, that's not right. Look at the white horse's forehead, it seems there's a bulge. It's somewhat similar to a dragon's horn. Oh, that's right, that's right. Around the auction hall, the people downstairs were making guesses one after another. On the contrary, the VIP guests on the third floor who were qualified to bid were now silent. Xiaohua pondered a little and understood that these people must have gotten the news. At the very least, they must have come to Zhai Xinglu to find out what kind of demonic beast this last item was from Zhuqing. That's why they didn't ask about it. This demonic beast is very strange. After everyone guessed for a long time, Yu Linfeng finally said, "It's not as simple as you think, little friend Yu." The voice from before was silent for a long time before it spoke again. "It's getting late. We still have other matters to attend to. If it's possible, it's better for us to bid earlier." Yes, senior." Yu Linfeng didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed and said, "This one will explain to the fellow immortal downstairs and immediately make a bid." This auction night was indeed long. Xiaohua stood in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking down at the entire auction hall. Xiaohua had been in the hidden immortal continent for a long time, but in reality he had always mingled with the people of the secular world. He didn't understand the entire hidden immortal continent, or it could be said that he didn't have the opportunity to come into contact with the people who cultivated on the hidden immortal continent. That Xing Chen, that Mo Jianli, they were considered experts in Xiao Jian's eyes, but in the hidden immortal continent, they were only nobodies. Only tonight, in this auction, the door to the cultivators of the hidden immortal continent gradually opened to Xiaohua. And Xiaohua also had a rough understanding of the entire hidden immortal continent through Fujiwen. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you recognize this demonic beast?" Fujiwen stood at the side and asked in a low voice. "No matter how I look at it, I don't understand. What's the difference between this and an ordinary white horse?" "Young Master Fu, this one also doesn't recognize it." Xiaohua answered honestly. "And this one also doesn't have any interest in it." "Oh, right, young Master Fu, this demonic beast. What's the difference between it and a demon? Today's auction has so many demonic beast eggs. Does the 1,000 demonic sacred land not care about it? I'll let fellow Taoist Xiao know." Fujiwen said with a smile. "My hidden immortal continent has a population of 1 trillion, but not everyone can cultivate. The majority of the people on hidden immortal continent are secular people. And the situation of the 1,000 demonic sacred land is the same as my hidden immortal continent. Their demonic beasts are more numerous than the population of my hidden immortal continent. The number of demonic beasts that can cultivate is also very small. And these are demons. AI, why didn't this one think of it?" Xiaohua patted his own forehead and said with a bitter smile. "Actually, it's that simple. When cultivators stand out, demons will naturally stand out from demonic beasts. Actually, it's not as simple as fellow Taoist thinks." Of course, Fujiwen didn't know that Xiaohua came from Xiaoyu continent. That place only has spirit beasts and demonic cultivators. There are no demons. Therefore, it's not very likely that Xiaohua would know what a real demon is. However, he still explained, "The 1,000 demonic sacred land is different from my hidden immortal continent. Their cultivation relies more on their innate talent. In other words, those who can cultivate to an extremely high realm all rely on their own bloodline and inheritance. Ordinary demonic beasts naturally can't cultivate. They can only rely on their instincts to survive and become the food of other demonic beasts. And some demonic beasts that have the opportunity to cultivate can also become demons. However, their achievements are extremely limited." While speaking, Fujiwen pointed at the white horse and said, "For example, this white horse is an extremely ordinary demonic beast. If it's in my hidden immortal continent, it can only be a domestic animal, a meat horse waiting to be slaughtered. At most, it can only be a mount." But this white horse in front of us clearly has some abnormality in its bloodline. It can be distinguished from an ordinary white horse. It's even rarer than ordinary demonic beasts. That, fellow Taoist Xiao, do you understand? Chapter 3295. Although Xiaohua is Star-Picking Tower's VIP, in Fujiwen's eyes, the primeval stones in Xiaohua's bag are far more important than Xiaohua's cultivation. Therefore, Fujiwen still treats Xiaohua as a fellow Taoist. Even though Xiaohua was a bit strange when the dragon bone appeared, Xiaohua's performance was too shocking. He actually didn't make any movement to resist. This made Fujiwen have a misconception that Xiaohua has a protective magic treasure or his innate bloodline is different from others. Therefore, he has always treated Xiaohua as a fellow Taoist who he can talk to freely. Xiaohua smiled and touched his nose. Speaking of bloodline power, he knows a lot more than Fujiwen. Therefore, he said, I naturally understand, demon. Oh, demon beast cultivation is different from my hidden immortal continent's human cultivation. It completely relies on the inheritance of memories, the power of the flesh body's bloodline. As long as you are born well, you can cultivate well. This is a typical competition of fathers. Competition of fathers? Fujiwen, slightly dazed, then immediately laughed out loud. Fellow Taoist Xiao is really interesting. That's right, demon beasts compete with their fathers. Whoever's father or mother's bloodline is more powerful, that person is more powerful. Xiaohua looked at the crystal floating in the air. The white horse in the crystal closed its eyes. Its long horse face was somewhat convulsing. Obviously, the white horse was in a lot of pain before it was sealed. Suddenly, a kind of indescribable feeling emerged from Xiaohua's heart. Damn, it seems, when I was rescued by Xiao Jian, it should also be like this, right? At this moment, Fujiwen pointed at the white horse and said, as fellow Taoist Xiao said, this white horse's bidding is placed at the end of the auction. If it's not its father who is more powerful, then its mother who is more powerful. Then who are its parents? Xiaohua and Fujiwen very naturally had this question in their hearts. Not giving them much time to think, Yu Linfeng carefully put away his folding fan, the smile on his face disappeared, and he cupped his hands. Seniors, fellow Taoists, this horse is called Heavenly Horse. Heavenly Horse? Just as Yu Linfeng's words fell, an impatient cultivator immediately said, Is this the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace? How could the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace be banished to my hidden immortal continent? The Immortal Palace strictly forbids the loss of Pegasus. Who dares to bid for Pegasus? This person's words seemed to represent everyone's doubts, arousing everyone's curiosity. Everyone stared at Yu Linfeng, waiting for his answer. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly. Although my Zhai Xing Lu has some power, it can't compare to the Immortal Palace. How can my Zhai Xing Lu bid for a Pegasus that the Immortal Palace has banned? This horse is called the Pegasus, but it is not the Pegasus of the Immortal Palace. My fellow immortals, please listen carefully. When you go out, don't say that I bid for the Pegasus and provoke the Immortal Palace to send troops to hunt you down. Haha. Everyone burst into laughter. Some people even took the opportunity to shout, Immortal friend you, since it's not the Heavenly Horse of the Immortal Palace, why is it called Heavenly Horse? Didn't they just want to have some disputes with the Immortal Palace? Maybe the Immortal Palace has sent troops, and Zhai Xing Lu will become even more famous in the hidden immortal continent. It's not as you said, fellow immortal. Although my Zhai Xing Lu can't compare to the Immortal Palace, we don't need to use their prestige to whitewash our face. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly and pointed at the white horse. This Pegasus has a pure bloodline. Its father's bloodline is the famous solitary windchaser beast of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Its mother's bloodline is even more mysterious. To be honest, I've never heard of it. Even my Zhai Xing Lu's consecrator can only guess. Fellow Taoist Yu, why don't you tell us? Hearing Yu Linfeng's pause, several people hastily called out. Ahem! A slightly dignified voice sounded from the third floor. Little friend Yu, hurry up and bid. What's the use of saying all this? This? Yu Linfeng was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly shut his mouth, as if someone had transmitted a message. After a moment, he said again, "As for the Pegasus Mother's tribe, my Zhai Xinglu is not particularly clear. We only know that this mother's tribe may not be within the 3 continents. In short, this Pegasus deserves its name." Immortal friend Yu, your words. Some people were dissatisfied, but Yu Linfeng knew that he couldn't say more. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "This Pegasus has the same starting price as the Scarlet Flame War Chariot, 50,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. I bid 60,000. Before Yu Linfeng could say the number of primordial stones for each bid, someone immediately bid. It didn't matter if this person bid, but everyone else bid. It seemed that other than Xiaohua, all the guests on the 3rd floor had bid. Xiaohua was a bit puzzled and whispered, "Young Master Fu, I don't understand. The Scarlet Flame War Chariot just now, from my Dao Sec's point of view, is a flying Dharma artifact with offensive capabilities. It should be worth hundreds of thousands of supreme-grade primordial stones. But a Pegasus, even if it's really a Pegasus from the Immortal Palace, it shouldn't be worth so many primordial stones, right?" Fu Jiwen smiled and said, "I'm not a person like Immortal friend Xiao, so I don't know what these seniors are thinking. But if you think about it carefully, a Pegasus has such a bloodline that even involves the beyond heaven. If you get a Pegasus, you might be able to obtain information about the beyond heaven, which might be beneficial for your ascension. Moreover, a real Pegasus is the exclusive property of the Immortal Palace. It's something that you can't get no matter how many primordial stones you have. Now, this Pegasus doesn't seem to be inferior to the Pegasus from the Immortal Palace. If you use it as a mount, wouldn't it be even more imposing than the Scarlet Flame War Chariot? If Immortal friend Xiao has extra primordial stones, you might as well take it out to bid. This thing, TSK, where do you go with it? People will know it's you before you even show up. You'll have a lot of face. Of course, if Immortal friend Xiao rides it, you have to be careful not to be targeted by others." Xiaohua finally understood that Fu Jiwen was treating him as a country bumpkin who hadn't seen the world. Moreover, he said it so obviously he was treating him as someone close to him. He couldn't help but laugh. "I do have some primordial stones, but I'm used to flying. Who would ride a horse? At the very least, I'll get a phoenix to ride." "Ride a phoenix?" Immortal friend Zhao's tone is really big. "When you ride it one day, let me broaden my horizons." Fu Jiwen curled his lips and smiled. He was very disdainful. "Damn it, I have really ridden a phoenix before. Moreover, I've changed many positions." Xiaohua was secretly proud. 200,000 top-grade primordial stones. This voice seemed to belong to young Master Duanmu. However, when he thought about how he haggled over 3 top-grade primordial stones, Xiaohua really doubted whether he had 200,000 top-grade primordial stones. Sure enough, that leaky voice laughed coldly. "Kid from the Duanmu family, Windy Mo, cut off your tongue. 200,000 top-grade primordial stones, can you take it out now?" "Immortal friend, whether I have 200,000 primordial stones or not is my business. Whether I bid or not is your business. There's no reason for you to doubt my primordial stones. Why don't you bid 1 top-grade primordial stone?" "Little brat, I bid 210,000 top-grade primordial stones." Hee, fellow immortal friends, I have just received everyone's support and obtained the Scarlet Flame War Chariot. I will not participate in this heavenly horse. Princess Baihua's somewhat weak voice sounded again. It was very clear to everyone who heard it. Duanmu Qing, the girl from the Murong family, opened her mouth and called out young Master Duanmu's name without any trace of politeness. "You already have the golden chariot and dragon horse. Why are you bidding for the heavenly horse? Miss Murong, aren't you slapping this little brother's face?" Duanmu Qing clearly did not dare to call out the name of the girl from the Murong family. She said with some hidden bitterness, "I haven't been able to find a suitable flying beast for my golden chariot. That dragon horse was only temporarily borrowed from someone else. This heavenly horse is my main purpose today. And you already have a flying rock on your lily chariot. What's the use of this white horse? I like it. Miss Murong chuckled and said, furthermore, I have always wanted to ride the heavenly horse to every corner of the hidden Immortal continent. I can't get the heavenly horse from the Immortal Palace. Isn't this heavenly horse what I want? What do you little brats know? I want this heavenly horse. 250,000 top-grade primordial stones. The voice that was the first to bid spoke again. Marshal A.O., I know that you are representing the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace today. If you let me have this item, I will owe the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace a favor. For you. The voice from the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace that had always been as steady as a mountain was now somewhat surprised. You didn't even say your name. How can I agree? All right, in that case, little brother Zhu, I will offend you. That voice raised his voice, and then a violent yellow wind was born from that place. It was like thousands of flying swords streaking across the sky, splitting the entire night sky. Seeing that the night sky illusion of the bright moon palace was about to be destroyed, Zhu Qing's voice sounded faintly, alas, seniors, you are making things difficult for me. Soon after, a shooting star was seen emerging from a corner, flying against the yellow wind. Sizzle! The violent sound of water falling into a pot of oil was heard. The yellow wind gradually stopped, but the entire night sky was boiling. All of the night sky was shaved off, revealing several white jade carved towers. Now that the origin array on the third floor has been removed, if seniors want to bid face-to-face, you can go to the pavilions. As Zhu Qing spoke, his figure appeared in front of the crystal of the heavenly horse. Faint ripples appeared under his feet, clearly separating the people on the third floor from the people who had fallen down. Who are you, fellow immortal? Now that you can show your true appearance, I really want to know. Who dares to order my Eastern Sea Dragon Palace around? A humanoid man with a dragon head and a golden crown on his head and golden armor on his body appeared on a pavilion. He looked at the opposite side and said faintly. This man was more than 10 feet tall. On the ferocious dragon head, his arrogant eyebrows were thick and black. A pair of eyes that were half a size larger than an ordinary person's flashed with a trace of fierceness. Obviously, this was Marshal A.O. of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. Chapter 3296. Hee, the leaky voice finally came from a building. A short and thin old man dressed in an earthen yellow robe walked out of the light. I'm Archean Ian Ridge's Jifeng. People call me Old Demon Jifeng. Old Demon Jifeng? Ao Shui frowned and sized up the old man. The old man's head was very small. His eyes were wrinkled and shiny. Beside his slightly protruding mouth, there were 2 long and hard beards. If he was not wrong, he should be a rat spirit. If the Eastern Sea Patrol has not heard of my name, I have nothing to say. After all, I am only slightly famous in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Old Demon Jifeng was not surprised by Ao Shui's sizing up. He smiled and said, after all, in this star-picking tower, one has to rely on primeval stones to speak. Since Jifeng knows that you are not famous, why should my Eastern Sea Dragon Palace give in? Ao Shui said coldly, one has to rely on strength to speak. Strength? Old Demon Jifeng smiled. If strength is useful, why do we need primeval stones? Junior will raise the price by 251,000 supreme-grade primeval stones. Do the 2 seniors want to raise the price? On the balcony far away, Duanmu Qing's figure appeared. She cupped her hands at the 2 and said respectfully, little brat, Old Demon Jifeng could not help but scold, can't you see that I am negotiating with the Eastern Sea Patrol? What does it have to do with you? You are really holding down the gourd and raising the ladle. Duanmu Qing was very unhappy. She said coldly, Senior, if you are talking to me and calling me that, I won't dare to argue with you. After all, you are old. Even if you don't respect me, I can't do anything about it. But now that we are bidding, I am representing my Duanmu family. If you call me a little brat, aren't you scolding my entire Duanmu family? Old Demon Jifeng was slightly stunned. Clearly, he did not expect Duanmu Qing to refute. He snorted and said, Do you think that you can represent the Duanmu family because you are just a little girl from the Murong family? Even if I kill you, Duanmu Tianji will not blame me. Old Demon Jifeng, the young mistress of the Murong family, rebuked, "Are you joking with me? He is the only one from the Duanmu family here, and he can represent the Duanmu family on that day. Since I'm the only one in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, does that mean I can represent the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" Old Monster Jifeng looked at Duanmu Qing with disdain and said, "This heavenly horse is something this old man must obtain. Its bloodline is very beneficial to this old man's cultivation. You are not my opponent. I will deal with you after I discuss with the East Sea Dragon Palace." Old Monster Jifeng, the East Sea Dragon Palace is also very interested in the bloodline of the Pegasus. "We will never give up," Ao Shui immediately said before Old Monster Jifeng could finish his sentence. Old Monster Jifeng was not surprised by Ao Shui's determination and said with a smile, "Inspector, actually, with your East Sea Dragon clan's bloodline, don't you think that the Heavenly Horse's bloodline is a little too thin?" Ao Shui frowned and asked, "Whether it's weak or not, we can only know after using it. Who can say for sure now? What if this old man tells you a brighter path?" Old Monster Jifeng seemed to have a card up his sleeve as he spoke. "Brighter?" Ao Shui's bulging dragon eyes revealed a trace of light. "Tell me first." "Hee, how can it be that simple? If the inspector agrees to this old man's conditions, this old man will naturally say it. Furthermore, this old man will also lend you a hand." This. Ao Shui pondered for a moment and looked at the heavenly horse in the crystal. He nodded and said, "All right, this old man agrees." Great, Old Monster Jifeng was overjoyed and hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Not to mention dealing with Old Monster Jifeng, even dealing with the East Sea Dragon Palace would not be a problem. However, the problem was that as long as they shed all pretense of cordiality, many things would have to be resolved with strength. This caused a lot of conflicts. Although Old Monster Jifeng had violated the ban, he had already called the price to a relatively high level, which could be considered as giving Zhu Qing some leeway. It was not at the end of the line, so Zhu Qing only spoke out to remind him and did not use the consecrations. Since that's the case, this old man does not dare to make things difficult for young friend Zhu. I bid 270,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. Old Monster Jifeng's rat eyes glanced at the bright moon palace and laughed loudly. I bid 280,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. Young Master Duanmu's face was very calm and did not show any signs of movement. That young Miss Murong also laughed, but still did not reveal her true feelings. This servant bids 290,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. It seemed that the three of them were not willing to give up. In just a moment, the primordial stones had increased to 400,000. Sigh, young friend Zhu, look, if this continues, there will be no end. Old Monster Jifeng laughed bitterly. This old man really has other things to do. I really cannot afford to waste time here. This old man can also see that these two young friends are determined to get this item, but there is no meaning in bidding with primordial stones. Moreover, if the two young friends from the aristocratic families suddenly bid 1,000,000 supreme-grade primordial stones, to be honest, this old man also cannot afford it. If Senior cannot afford it, you can withdraw. Young Master Duanmu smiled faintly. This old man can withdraw. Old Monster Jifeng's tone was also indifferent. But this item involves this old man's cultivation. This old man cannot let it go. If you do not use this old man's method to bid for this item, if this old man does not live well, others should not think about living well. Even if there is someone who can be protected by Zhai Xinglu, this old man does not believe that he will not walk on the hidden immortal continent in this lifetime. Senior. Zhu Qing's face turned cold as he said, "Spirit fruits can be eaten carelessly, spirit wine can be drunk carelessly, but words cannot be spoken carelessly. What is the meaning of Senior saying all this here? Could it be that you are threatening the other immortal friends?" "No." Old Monster Jifeng stretched his waist and laughed. "This old man is just casually complaining, that's all." "That's good. Zhu Qing said faintly, those who come to my Zhai Xing Lu are this Zhu's honored guests. This Zhu does not wish for any unpleasant things to happen. Moreover, this Zhu's patience is also a bit, I do not wish to be forced. Young friend Zhu, this old man will raise the bidding price of this Pegasus to 500,000 supreme-grade primordial stones. Old monster Zhifeng laughed. Of course, this is already the limit that this old man can take out. This one. Not waiting for old monster Zhifeng to finish, young master Duanmu opened his mouth again. Old monster Zhifeng snorted coldly. Why is the Duanmu family's upbringing so bad? Can't you see that this old man has not finished speaking? Old monster Zhifeng. Young master Duanmu was also unhappy. This one respects you as a senior and has always been patient. Chapter 3297. Ah, the girl from the Murong family is smart. That's exactly what I meant. Old demon Zhifeng laughed loudly. If we can subdue it, who will it belong to? Young Master Duanmu laughed coldly. Naturally, it will belong to young Master Duanmu or young Lady Murong. It has nothing to do with me. Old demon Zhifeng answered cleanly. All right, we'll do as you say. Young Master Duanmu did not hesitate and immediately agreed. It was obvious that he was prepared to subdue the Pegasus. Old demon Zhifeng looked in the direction of the Murong family and asked indifferently, what about the girl from the Murong family? How about it? Senior Zhifeng, the eldest young lady from the Murong family, did not say anything. Instead, Zhu Qing asked, it would be best if one of you can subdue the Pegasus. But if no one can subdue it, who will it belong to? Naturally, it will belong to young Master Duanmu or young Lady Murong. It has nothing to do with me. Old demon Zhifeng looked like he had the confidence to capture it. What if the Pegasus is released and my Zhai Xing Lu's origin array and consecrators are unable to subdue it? Zhu Qing asked again. This time, even Xiao Hua, who was listening at the side, felt his heart skip a beat. He thought to himself, it seems that old demon Zhifeng was right. Zhai Xing Lu is hiding something. Don't worry, little friend Zhu. Old demon Zhifeng smiled. Since this idea was thought of by me, the 500,000 supreme-grade origin stones will naturally be paid by me. Alright. Zhu Qing heard old demon Zhifeng's words and took responsibility for all the accidents. Naturally, he did not have any objections and nodded. Fellow immortals. Old demon Zhifeng raised his head and said loudly, please, everyone watch carefully. If anything happens, this old man's supreme-grade origin stones will fly with the Pegasus. You old demon, you're so troublesome. You want to take advantage of my Zhai Xing Lu, yet you want us to help you. A slightly old voice sounded from the top of the Bright Moon Palace. Many thanks, many thanks. Old monster Zhifeng cupped his hands towards the sky and laughed heartily. I didn't have enough confidence to subdue this heavenly horse. At this moment, the voice of the eldest daughter of the Murong family rang out. Then, a woman dressed in pink with a scarf covering her face walked out from the balcony. Beneath her feet was a cloud of lilies as she steadily stood in midair. However, since Senior Zhifeng is willing to take on the same risk, this servant can't not show her support. Good. Since that's the case, let's use our methods. Let's see who can lead this heavenly horse away. Old monster Zhifeng waved his hand, revealing a sharp little claw from within his loose robe. Right at this moment, another voice resounded. Xiao Hua, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, stepped out from the balcony. He took 2 steps in midair and said with a smile, I didn't expect this auction to be so lively. I wanted to wait until the end of the auction. Who knew that things would develop to such an extent? If I still don't come out, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to obtain this heavenly horse. Everyone was surprised. Old monster Zhifeng blinked his small eyes and looked at Xiao Hua from head to toe. He sneered, Who the hell are you? How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? This one is not a green onion. This one is the Dao Sex Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua wasn't angry and said indifferently, Moreover, I don't think I'm being arrogant. I'm only bidding for a heavenly horse. Especially, even if I fail, I won't lose half a piece of origin stone. Why wouldn't I participate? Xiao Hua's sudden appearance not only made old demon Jifeng unhappy, but even young noble Duanmu narrowed his eyes. He closely stared at Xiao Hua and waited for old demon Jifeng to ask before speaking. Xiao Hua, do you know what is meant by, if you don't seek death, you won't die? Earlier, you went against me time and time again, and I endured it time and time again. I even sent you a visiting card, but I didn't expect that, at this moment, you really want to fight me to the death. Young Master Duanmu, what young Master Zhu said earlier was extremely good. Spirit fruits can be eaten indiscriminately, spirit wine can be drunk indiscriminately, but words can't be spoken indiscriminately. I'm here to bid with origin stones and have taken a fancy to this heavenly horse. Moreover, I'm also a VIP on the 3rd floor. Why can't I bid? Could it be that young master has already taken this heavenly horse as his exclusive property? Xiao Hua didn't care about young Master Duanmu's anger and only said indifferently. At first, he didn't want to participate in the bidding, but when he saw the pitiful state of the heavenly horse being sealed in the crystal, he sighed in his heart. He carefully looked at the heavenly horse, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. He didn't have any flying mounts, and bidding for this heavenly horse was just right for him to use as a means of transportation. Moreover, Xiao Hua, who was used to using the lightning escape technique, could only rely on the flying talisman to fly. How could he endure it? If he offended a certain expert, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. If this heavenly horse could fly very fast, it would definitely be the best method for him to escape. Therefore, he participated in the bidding at the last moment, and he also had the heart to win. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Although young Master Duanmu didn't say the thing, at the end, it was obvious that he really didn't care about Xiao Hua. He still remembered the matter of the 3 origin stones clearly. Golden core cultivation method. What would he do with that thing? However, Xiao Hua indeed didn't seem to have any high cultivation, but that kind of calmness that was as steady as a mountain couldn't be underestimated. Especially when Xiao Hua's words were reasonable. This was a bidding. If Xiao Hua had the qualifications, why couldn't he bid? Young Master Zhu. Duanmu Qing looked at Zhu Qing, who was watching from the side, and said indifferently, does this Dao sect loose cultivator have the qualifications to bid for this heavenly horse? If young Master Zhu doesn't have the confidence, after he bids, young Master Zhu won't be able to receive any origin stones. Many thanks for young Master Duanmu's reminder. Zhu Qing's face didn't reveal any special expression as he said, every VIP who participated in the auction, my Zhai Xing Lu has seen their small Qiankuan bags. Although this immortal friend is a Dao sect loose cultivator, he is no exception. He can pay 500,000 top-grade origin stones. Hehe, a broken-down Dao sect loose cultivator can take out 500,000 top-grade origin stones. What's wrong with this world? Why do I feel that it's unreal? Duanmu Qing really couldn't understand. Luckily, he was also from a prestigious family. Perhaps he had other thoughts in his heart, but his mouth and face didn't show any strange expression. Xiao Hua smiled. What? Are you looking down on my Dao sect? If I can take out 500,000 origin stones, will you be able to bid for this heavenly horse? Does young Master Duanmu dare to make a bet? Young Master Duanmu said coldly, if you dare to continue bidding with me, let's see who has more origin stones. I will definitely bet with you. Of course. Xiao Hua took out his small Qiankuan bag and said, let's compete now. Whoever has more origin stones will take the heavenly horse away. Of course I can. But does anyone else agree? Young Master Duanmu didn't back down. Although he didn't take out his small Qiankuan bag, he still replied. Hearing young Master Duanmu's reply, Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. Just now, for 3 top-grade primordial stones and other things, young Master Duanmu wanted to express his goodwill. How could young Master Duanmu have 500,000 top-grade primordial stones on him? He would definitely buy it first, then leave the golden carriage and dragon horse here, and then make up for the rest of the primordial stones. Thus, Xiao Hua said loudly, how about this? Let's compete in origin stones. Whoever has less origin stones will withdraw from the bidding for the heavenly horse. How about that? Young Master Duanmu's suppressed anger finally exploded. His expression changed and he shouted loudly, "Xiaohua, did you eat a leopard's guts? Although I don't want to cause trouble, but you insist on finding trouble with me. Don't blame me for being impolite." Seeing young Master Duanmu's stern voice, Xiaohua knew that his guess was not wrong. His cultivation had not recovered. Why would he take the initiative to find trouble with him? Xiaohua smiled and said, "Look at what young Master Duanmu said. I met young Master Duanmu before entering Zhai Xinglu. It can be considered fate. Didn't we appreciate each other when we were bidding just now? Why did young Master Duanmu lose his composure when I participate in the bidding for the heavenly horse? Even if young Master Duanmu is determined to win, there are still others beside you. Did I hinder young Master Duanmu by participating?" Hearing Xiaohua mention others, young Master Duanmu's heart trembled. That old demon Zhifeng of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was the first to question Xiaohua. He refuted Xiaohua for a long time and didn't want him to participate. However, that old demon Zhifeng didn't say a word. It was really strange. Since he didn't speak, there was no need for him to block anything for old demon Zhifeng. "All right," young Master Duanmu casually said and looked at old demon Zhifeng. Then he smiled and said, "Since it's like this shall thanks Senior." Old monster Zhifeng nodded. However, he shouted towards the surroundings again, "The four of us are preparing to use our own methods to subdue this Pegasus. If any immortal friends still have ideas, please come out now. Otherwise, when we begin to subdue it, you can no longer make a move." After old monster Zhifeng finished speaking, no one answered for a while. Old monster Zhifeng said to Zhu Qing, "Little friend Zhu, you also saw it. Only the four of us are preparing to subdue this Pegasus. Why don't you quickly release this Pegasus?" Wait, just as Zhu Qing was about to speak, the eldest miss of the Murong family opened her mouth. "Senior Zhifeng, little girl, what's wrong now?" Old monster Zhifeng was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. He said somewhat impatiently. The eldest miss of the Murong family smiled and said, "This servant originally planned to return to my family's seniors to tame this Pegasus after buying this Pegasus. Just now, because young Master Duanmu participated in the bidding, this servant mustered up the courage to accompany young Master Duanmu. Now that immortal friend Xiao is participating in the bidding, I reckon that he also has a method to tame this Pegasus. Then this servant will not blindly meddle in this, so as to avoid making a fool of myself." Not only was old monster Zhifeng surprised, his small mouse eyes slightly flashed. Even young Master Duanmu frowned. Although the eldest miss of the Murong family spoke courteously, everyone present understood that this eldest miss of the Murong family was giving face to Xiaohua. Strange? This Murong Tsongyan has always had her eyes above her head. When did she know this little tramp from the Dao sect? Young Master Duanmu was truly puzzled. Actually, not only Duanmu Qing, even Xiaohua himself was greatly stunned. He rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Miss Murong, we do not know each other. There is no need to be so courteous." "It has nothing to do with this." Murong Tsongyan said with a smile, "This servant is a woman. I cannot compare to the divine abilities of men like you. If I continue to be angry with this beast, wouldn't I lose my Confucian upbringing? This servant will not make a fool of herself. You all use your divine abilities to tame this Pegasus." After speaking, without waiting for anyone to speak, she turned around and disappeared into the pavilion. Old monster Zhifeng naturally did not care if Murong Tsongyun participated in the bidding or not. He cautiously glanced at Xiaohua, turned his head and said to the distant Zhu Qing, "Little friend Zhu, you can release this Pegasus now." Zhu Qing glanced at the three people and could not help but remind them, "Three immortal friends, this Pegasus' speed is definitely much faster than what you all think. Moreover, its temper is extremely violent. It is said that, It was only by luck that we were able to capture it after being surrounded by many experts. As for others, they were only able to sell it to my Zhai Xinglu for bidding when they were unable to tame it. Why don't the three immortal friends work together to surround this Pegasus and then do the other things? Alright, Duanmu Qing naturally trusted Zhu Qing's words. She glanced at Xiao Hua and old monster Zhifeng's position and flew up a bit to face the two of them. She surrounded the crystal that sealed the Pegasus in the middle. Xiao Hua, who was opposite Duanmu Qing, did not mind. After all, the space in the Bright Moon Palace was not too big. Moreover, the three of them surrounded the Pegasus. No matter how fast the Pegasus was, it might not be faster than his ethereal steps. Moreover, his current magic power was not enough to activate the lightning evasion. However, he could activate the wind evasion for a moment. As long as he had the opportunity to get close to the Pegasus, wouldn't he be able to use the dragon elephant force in his arms to tame this Pegasus? Looking at old monster Zhifeng, who was standing there without moving, he was even more confident than Xiao Hua. Seeing this, Zhu Qing naturally could not say anything else. He raised his head and looked at the night sky above the Bright Moon Palace. He extended his hand and took out a thumb-sized rhombus-shaped crystal. That crystal seemed to be of the same origin as the crystal that sealed the Pegasus. Just as he took it out, it immediately emitted a faint radiance. That radiance swept across the surface of the rhombus-shaped crystal and refracted onto the large crystal. A multicolored light suddenly flashed from the large crystal. Zhu Qing waved his hand and the small rhombus-shaped crystal landed in midair. Then, Zhu Qing opened his mouth and a breath of vital energy landed on the crystal. Pang! A crisp sound rang out and the entire small crystal immediately turned into 9 petals. It was like a transparent chrysanthemum blossoming in midair. Zhu Qing extended his hand again and extended his middle finger. He opened his mouth and a ray of sword aura shot out. Then, he flicked his middle finger and a bunch of blood essence flew out from his middle finger and landed on the 9 flower-like crystals. Go! Following Zhu Qing's final flick of his sleeve, numerous righteous qi rushed out and carried the 9 small crystals to 9 spots on the large crystal. But at the places where the 9 small crystals landed, ripples immediately appeared on the large crystal. At the places where the ripples collided, even more fine lines appeared on the surface of the entire crystal. In just a moment, the entire surface of the crystal was completely covered by the ripples and started to rapidly tremble. Just like boiling water, the crystals became smaller and smaller under the ripples. The Pegasus' snow-white back and its frosty ponytail were revealed. Senior Zhifeng, young Master Duanmu, fellow Immortal Xiao. Seeing the Pegasus appear, Zhu Qing's face showed caution. He could not help but remind them again, the Pegasus is about to be released. All of you, be careful. Don't worry. I have woken up. Duanmu Qing smiled proudly. She reached into her bosom and took out a dazzling golden object. She glanced at old monster Zhifeng and said, Senior Zhifeng, who will make a move first? Should we make a move now or wait until the Pegasus is completely free? Oh my! This is your Duanmu family's dragon-subduing lock? Old monster Zhifeng glanced at it and said somewhat exaggeratedly, it seems like those 4 dragon horses were subdued by this dragon-subduing lock. You have prepared extremely well. Hee, Senior Zhifeng, this kid does not have your cultivation. If I did not have any imperial equipment on me, how would I dare to come down and subdue the Pegasus? Duanmu Qing replied with a smile. At the same time, she looked at Xiao Hua. Old monster Zhifeng looked at the Pegasus' neck that was already revealed and said, as long as the Pegasus is able to wake up, there is no need to wait for the crystals to disappear. The 3 of us will make a move at the same time. Whoever can make a move first will get it. Okay, we will do as Senior says. Hearing that, Duanmu Qing immediately chanted. It was actually the same as the Dao sect's magic equipment. That dazzling golden object flew into the air and actually transformed into a long chain. At the front of this chain, there was even a chain-like protrusion. A kind of hard-to-resist restrictive force was born from this dragon subduing lock's golden light. Kid, what magic equipment do you have? Why are you not taking it out? Old Monster Jifeng looked at Xiaohua curiously. Although Xiaohua looked like he was eager to fight, he did not take out the magic equipment that he expected. Xiaohua smiled and said, "I do not need any magic equipment to subdue the Pegasus." Old Monster Jifeng faintly raised his eyebrows. He did not show any astonishment. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.